本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。I miss you. What's good, Internet? It's Friday, November 6th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 357. I'm your very tired, haggard host, Austin Walker, joined by, similarly, I think, between election week and new console rollout week, a team of people who have been working very hard and being very stressed. Rob Zachney.
You know, I can't say whether it was the election or trying to write my fucking Xbox review at like 1 a.m. last night that did more damage to me. Possibly both, but I was psychically drained by needing to put those good vibes out to the mail-in ballots.
Well, don't worry. We're going to talk about both of those things today, and we'll get it all out there. Gita Jackson also here.
Hello, I'm also here.
Welcome.
That's
how are you feeling?
How I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, you wake up every day since the election evening. I've just been like, do we know who the president is going to be yet? No? Okay. Just going to keep checking out until then. As soon as we know, I will stop thinking about Beyond Light for like 5 minutes. But until then, it's Beyond Light only.
God. Also, Patrick Klepek.
I'm here to report I enjoyed the first 20 minutes of Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, which is what I turned to once it became clear that I didn't need to watch the election anymore. Nothing was going to change. And it was like, I am going to turn my gaze elsewhere to this violent film and fall asleep in the first 15 minutes of it. It was
Lord
pretty
of
great.
Illusions.
Would you like to hear about the real
illusions or illusions?
Lord of Illusions.
If it was illusions,
Tricks.
that would be extremely funny.
Your Chicago, your Illinois accent is not making it any easier for me to understand what vowel you are saying.
No.
And I don't think I even have a particularly strong one. I mean,
No,
it's
you
there.
really don't. But I still
Faint. I get. Yeah, it's called. It's. You know, your distance from the city of Chicago influences that to happen. In which the northwest suburbs are a solid. Well, you know, if there's no traffic, you could do it in 35. But like, you're usually looking at like a 50-minute drive to get into the city. So
yeah. Just the
I'm not
occasional
gonna.
IA mix up, and I'm just like, yes, he's from a different part of the country than I am.
what, Rob?
I'm not
what did
making
you
it
had
home to
something?
Chicago this year.
True.
And the Hogan John's podcast over at The Athletic, the two Bears beat reporters, like their accents almost bring me to tears sometimes, like with homesickness, just like these two just whining, honking Chicago accents, just like, you know, I hear that accent complaining about the Bears and like I am just overcome with nostalgia and I badly
like,
miss home.
Whining, honking is like a little bit like an angry goose, you know? But in an endearing way. I miss Chicago a lot, even though it's about to become the coldest place known to man, like, imminently.
I miss it too. I don't go there either. It's not that far from me, and I still miss Chicago.
When's the last time you left the burbs? The last time I left the city, like a couple weeks ago, and then it was the first time since March. So I'm just wondering, how was the last time we've left
for the birth of my child? Because my wife's hospital was in the city, so we drove out there.
You had to go.
The last time. Had to go.
Wow.
Yeah, it turns out. It turns out had to go.
Also joining us, Cado. Hi, Cado.
Hi.
I'll stick you at the end there.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just
How you feeling?
catching up on sleep for a bit. It's cool. Don't worry about it.
Well, like during this intro, you mean?
Yeah, it's just you ever do that thing? You ever drive and like your head kind of dips in a bad way?
Yeah,
You know that thing? That I guess is just my
while
life
driving
now.
the podcast. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, please be careful.
Stayed up too late playing too much Destiny all these nights.
What did you do after we beat that raid? 'Cause I went straight to bed.
I'm just chasing some last minute exotics and shit,
Oh, okay.
I
was trying to see if I could do
exotics.
If I can do Cade's Will before Beyond Light.
Is that not sticking around? Is Cade's Will not sticking around?
I heard Cade's Will is going. I know it's part of Forsaken, but I heard the exotic
I beat
quest
Forsaken
is
this week.
gone.
We're going to talk about Destiny now instead of talking about the election. That's what people really want to hear about. Forsaken,
Destiny,
it's pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
it's way more conclusive than the election, though. Let's say that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of Forsaken, you know what's happened. Right now, what's happening in our country, we don't know.
I don't know. All right, we should put a politics minute on the clock.
No, it's not a politics minute. It is Cado is starting a 20-minute timer.
It's a 20-minute politics minute.
Mm-hmm.
This politics 20 minutes. Or 20 consecutive politics minutes.
No one remembers the callbacks. What are you going to do about that? I don't know. We should put that time. I'm going to pull up time.is. What time is it?
Time.is 20 minutes.
it's 11:11:11 at the moment that I open that screen, which is pretty powerful.
Here's my wish that we'll figure out who the president's going to be.
Thank you, Rob. The politics happened this week, everybody. The election is ongoing for people who have not been paying attention to the U.S. election. And again, if you want to not hear about this, just jump ahead by like 20 minutes, probably like 25 minutes. You know what it is. And I think there are a lot of thoughts in the air, especially on a podcast like this, about how it's gone, how we think it might be going, and kind of like what can our big takeaways be? Who wants to just jump in? Who is like has the take that they need to put out into the world?
Fuck elections. How's that?
No, wait, no.
Okay, no. Here's actually what I want to say.
Fuck electoralism.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is that the federal election for president has been frustrating, like a non-starter in many ways, and has ended up in a situation where, regardless of who wins, things are still going to be very bad for a lot of people. If one person wins, things will be slightly less bad, and that's the outcome I'm hoping for. But you got two bad options. But when you look down ballot at a lot of down ballot races and a lot of things that are legislation that's being passed via referendums, that you see a lot to get really excited about, and that is where I just begin to realize and remember the lesson I've been teaching myself the past 4 years is that electoral politics on the national stage, frustrating, not gonna get what you want, gonna be really upsetting just to involve yourself in and to make it like your primary race. But when you look down ballot, you see American people that are interested in having things change, New Jersey just passed, legalization for marijuana. And despite the jokiness everyone has whenever a state passes weed, that's that's just going to happen in all 50 states. That's an incredibly popular piece of legal legislation. And
Florida passed $15 minimum wage.
Yeah, this is all shit that's popular. This is all the things that I want to see happen nationally are popular in places where you don't think that they would be popular. And you'll see the
Maine
DSA.
I saw also, right? Maine wound up with also hazard pay, and I think some change to minimum wage. And some other big things too.
74% of the people who live in the District of Columbia opted to legalize psychedelics.
Shout outs to DC.
Yo, they're on a journey. They're ready for it though.
Oregon decriminalized all drugs that were previously
which is a huge step forward for the harm reduction model of dealing with addiction recovery, which
now
is
imagine
the one that works.
If the party ran candidates who campaign on popular
I don't know.
policy.
See, I'm not convinced of that, Austin.
The DSA nominated or endorsed 28 candidates, and something like 26 of them won their races. There is a progressive wing that is gaining ground.
Yes.
It's gaining ground and gaining power on a local level. And if you are interested in progressive politics, what you should do is try to get involved with these people. And that's what's exciting for me. And that's basically, it's just made it easier to not give a shit about the mess.
I want Patrick to have his space to voice this what I think will probably be a dissenting opinion.
I'm more. It's dispiriting. More people voted for him. His slice the electorate was more than 2016.
Yes, the GOP grew. The
GOP grew.
Yes.
The ways that it grew are fascinating. That I don't look at the exit polls. It's gonna be a while before we have a full slate of the data. But one of the larger takeaways is that progressive policies are popular, but when associated with the Democratic Party are unpopular. And I'm also not convinced that's as simple as, Bernie would have won. I actually think Bernie would have lost. I think Bernie would have lost in 2020. I'm not saying. I'm just trying to work through my
your own internal.
Like, I think Bernie would have won in 2016. I think he would have lost in 2020. I would have rather he ran in 2020 because go down sucker punching than in the way that we worked out. But I don't know. Like, that was where, like, the polling was so off, and you just look around, and I don't know. Like, I don't know I was suspicious of my neighbors before. I'm more suspicious of them now. And I don't know. I found it all so, it's where a win feels like a loss. And I don't know what the path forward is from there. It's like, yeah, throw out Pelosi, throw out Schumer. The AOC in 2024 is not a magic fucking bullet. And it's where I come back in the same way I did in 2016, which I try to remind myself. It's what Gita is saying, is like, look at what's in your control. Like, understand that there are structural long-term forces that you can only influence on the margins as like one person, and what can you do for your community and what's around you to feel good about yourself and what you can improve, because the other stuff is just like, you just want to flush half the country down the fucking drain.
I think to that though, like, I think that sentiment, I sympathize with it, but I do think like therein lie some of the seeds of the problems facing Democratic politics. I think for me, like, there is no sugarcoating this. Like, this election was basically a disaster. Like, you could not have asked for what seemed like they should have been more favorable conditions than the Democrats had. Trump, like, demonstrably fucked up a pandemic. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead already. Many more are dealing with ongoing effects from COVID-19, and that number is going to swell considerably over the coming months. And that's to say nothing of all the people who've lost work, lost housing, lost security during all of this.
And those are not contentious issues in terms of, I mean, COVID has been made contentious through ongoing propaganda from the Republican Party. But in terms of, you look at something like what Claire McCaskill has come out and said, some like vaguely transphobic shit in saying that, like, hey, the party shouldn't have been focusing on trans rights issues. It shouldn't have been focusing on race and identity and blah, blah, blah. This is how we lose, da, da, da. The stuff that you just said is not even in that category of like contemporary woke identity politics stuff. That is base shit. That is like dead people and lost jobs, simple stuff.
Right. And I think the thing that's the real wake up call here is, we didn't get the rejection of Trump and Trumpism that we wanted to, but we did get what looks like it's going to be a rejection of Trump, a milder one than we wanted. But the thing is, people came back to the GOP and rejected Democrats. Like, GOP candidates outperformed Donald Trump. So the entire theory where they would go down with his ship completely exploded. The notion that high turnout automatically and forever favors Democrats also appears to be pretty well out the window.
And what's the phrase, demographics is destiny, which also seems to have been completely blown up. Like, this idea that there'll just be like an emerging permanent Democratic majority due to demographics.
What is so interesting is that this election in particular seems to have killed polling. Polling's over now. We can't trust polls. It's just done.
Give it a year. Give it a year. Give it a year. Listen, we're gonna say this like as hard as we can, and then in the lead up to the midterms, we will all be looking at polls again. Like
this was the cycle of don't trust the polls, right? Like rejecting using big lead polls as a reason to like drive Democratic turnout. Like, was like a huge part of like the last 18 months.
There will be a new poll product that someone will develop and say fixes the problems with the polls from this cycle, or addresses them, or it comes with extra caveats, or we dig deeper, or we go broader. Like I never trust the system to give up on that scam.
5e the Fox is going to make a comeback, is what you're saying?
5e the Fox will be back, motherfucker. That motherfucker's not going anywhere. Anyway, Rob, go ahead.
But I think beyond that, there's the don't trust the polls in terms of like our relationship with them as consumers of media, as people who follow politics. But nothing here, like whatever the internal polling guiding decision making during a lot of these campaigns was, it also appears to have crashed on the runway. And I think the thing that I really want to drive home here is that this was a really important election to win. This was, and defeating Trump was never enough. This is something we were saying for a long time, and certainly in the lead up to this election, as the ramifications of the GOP stacking of the judiciary became clear. This was one you needed to succeed down ballot. You needed something of a wave election, and this one appeared to be within reach. And you can already see the goalposts moving from the centrist wing of the party, where because you can't run these experiments twice and like propose the counterfactual. I don't know if Bernie would have won or lost. I do know that with this like incarnation of the Democratic Party, we did lose. We had an enormously weak incumbent and a party that was absolutely implicated in that incompetence. And except for the top of the ticket, the Democrats were smoked pretty thoroughly and saw groups they take for granted begin to break away.
The Latino vote, the Latinx vote that we had gotten on lock with Bernie went so much more so towards Trump this time. That for me was personally disappointing because you can see the same thing that happened with the working class demographic, the Rust Belt, which had been so reliable for the Democratic Party, is that the Democratic Party started to take it for granted and then not do anything to appeal to those voters. And then they broke away. And like we're going to see it again with more and more demographics until we have the party of Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Amy McCaskill, that should be over now, right? This should be dead. And if it's not dead, we have to kill it.
It's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of contention over what the future of the party looks like. To go really quickly back to that question, Rob, there's a few things that have come up that I just want to quickly hit because we've already gone for half of our politics chat. I keep coming back to the thing that you just said, Rob, the thing of like, we know we lost key stuff here. That's one thing. That's a known thing. And you, I think it was you on Twitter the other day, or maybe that was in a DM. I don't remember. Basically laying out that like, what was it wasn't you, it was someone else. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when we decided to run Biden in order to secure down ballot wins and House and Senate wins. Senate seems like it might be back in play theoretically with a pair of runoffs in Georgia ? Which we can talk about. We can talk about the Georgia runoffs, which is one of those. I think, dude. Yeah, I'm with you. The point is, this was not a. It was not a. But it was not a wave. It was not a runaway thing. And at that point, that negative disappears from progressive candidates like Bernie. And for me, disappears from the argument against progressive candidates, in which what they say is, well, listen, we need Biden, we need someone down the middle to win those races. The thing that I think, to go back to the other point, kind of lattice onto that, the question of whether or not the GOP has now this coalition between the kind of Trumpist voters, the traditional evangelicals, the kind of old school conservatives, that sticks around post-Trump. If we get a post-Trump, which nothing is fucking promised, do not feel comfortable yet. Well, but that would be true regard, like, right? That would be if it's now or if it's 4 years from now. Right. The question is it like a realignment, or is it in some ways like the mirage of like the quote Obama coalition, where it's like a unique candidate pulls together a coalition that seems like, oh, this is a permanent majority, and then as it turns out, like, you run some lesser candidates, and I just want to finish my point before Rob pops in. Yeah. Which is, we can't count out that we also get to have unique candidates sometimes. Right. That we can get people who can take whatever, like, yes, there are never Trumpers, theoretically. They're so small that doesn't matter, because the group of people who are Trump diehards and the group of people who are going to vote strategically with Trump are so much bigger than whatever is lost by the party having chosen Trump 4 years ago and having continued through today. That is not off the table for us. And so when I think about having a party choose a candidate who is willing to champion the sort of policies that are popular, that we know are popular, because not only are they polling well, but because they are being voted in down ballot, elections or down ballot propositions. That to me is a point in the favor of running someone who can, vocally and charismatically champion those policies. And that we can think about the alternative world where it's not that like, oh, Bernie is such a better politician that he wins. It's that can he actually motivate people in places like Texas, where we know he was doing better with the Latino vote than Biden was, for instance, and also continue to build out that progressive, that rising progressive wing, and also get the Dems who are going to vote against Trump in this situation anyway. I would have loved to have seen how that goes. And again, honestly, that's just like me as someone who would rather a progressive, a leader of the party. In 4 years, I don't think it's going to be Bernie. Bernie too old.
He's old as shit.
He's old as shit.
But he still got it.
Freaking old.
He had a heart attack.
Of course he does. Yeah, I know. But
really?
I'm with Robin.
He
I think
almost
he
died.
Yes,
He's
I'm
such
with
a
Robin.
good
I think
communicator, though. Holy
I
shit!
agree.
Like
I agree.
But
and real quick, let's just fucking podcast of note, podcast of record. Bernie did his fucking ad. He spent his all of this year campaigning for Biden post primary in ways that were often frustrating. And yet, like, if anyone ever raises the like he didn't do enough to try to help Biden win the election thing, I'm gonna.
Which, to be clear, centrists are already doing.
I know,
like,
of course.
Again, you go on Twitter, you will always
that.
find dead
Yes,
enders
yes.
of various stripes.
Yeah,
like there are still people who are like,
I got a Warren person still arguing with me when I pointed out that she never had the broad support she needed to win the primary. And I just asked about the weird thing they always said, which is she's electable if you vote for her, which just feels like a nonsense tautology. And
That's
they're
just
like, it's simple if you just think about it. And I'm like, wow, you really are holding on to this anger. I was like 400 years ago.
well, if there's one thing Warren voters were not good at, it was recognizing when a fight was over. But
God.
like, and I liked her, but like, come on, that was ridiculous.
I
Anyway,
liked it. Anyway, we can't rehash this now.
There are other more important things to do in the politics minute.
Yeah.
like, I think one of the other things, not to get too Matt Stoller on this issue, but like governance does matter. Like one of the things that I see in the reaction to a lot of these results is this tendency we hear about it with geography where it's like, curse these red states. Damn, can we nuke the South yet? Can we cut Florida off the country?
Yeah.
But you also get it with demographics as well. You get people saying things like, oh my God, white men, what is wrong with you? And to be fair, there's a lot of asshole white guys who are like, you know what? I kind of dig the racism. A lot. There are, but not all of them. Some of them are, you know what I mean? You do not know what motivates
Rob
all
Zacny,
the voters.
not all white guys, 2020.
I am saying like you cannot look at demographics and be like, these are wicked people.
We're chopping the right.
Yeah.
We're chopping. We're going to give up on this because the way to win is actually to be able to pull enough people across.
Well,
large.
and
the Trump
Obama
electorate
cleaned
proves
house.
And if
that.
you look at the states that are battlegrounds right now, they're all southern states. They're all these states that people have always been like, I wish we could secede from these people. There's a lot of progressive people who live there and want things to be better for themselves and their loved ones.
Georgia might like tint blue, like largely on like back of like Stacey Abrams, like running that state.
What do y'all think?
Should be.
Here's a question: what do you think of this thing that we've heard a lot of over the last few days of like the work that Stacey Abrams did, the work that Beto did, like building out these. Okay, so really the framing for this is James Carville and then Michael Steele came on MSNBC to kind of backpat the states where Dems lost but made progress this year, and basically saying this is what a victory looks like. Actually, this is generational change. We didn't get it this time, but Beto O'Rourke and Stacey Abrams and like we're getting there. This is success, baby. And I just kept like falling into a void, staring at Michael Steele, thinking about the fact that people are still putting him on TV.
Yeah, just like these are the gains that we should have been making under Obama, and then Obama never fostered. And now we're trying to play catch up now. Like it's going to do fucking anything to deal with our current situation. Like you just can't look to the national leadership for anything like quality, anything reassuring even. Man, it's like even in New York, like looking to our governor is just sort of like staring into a black hole. The only place where I find any kind of hope for the Democratic Party or like a left-wing coalition is just going incredibly hyper-local because you see people who are convincing their neighbors to actually do something. Like here, like the Dems can barely convince their constituency to vote for them.
I think this is kind of where I was going with like Obama had some really impressive election wins with people who have turned against Democrats.
Right.
And for whatever
Won
reason,
Wisconsin by 400,000 votes. Biden's going to skate through with 20K.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. And so, like, for me,
But that's
one
the point, by the way, of just, I'm going to interject again, charismatic leaders who can push on policy.
Who sounded a lot more progressive than he actually was.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Right.
this is
Well, that's
the
the thing. So
thing.
Obama did not govern on that. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah.
Yes, the
I'm gonna shut
charisma
up now.
has to be matched by something. Like, one of the things, there's something very self-exculpatory by looking at demographic shifts and being like, damn, this country's just gotten so racist. Because then you are spared any need to introspect about like why the call of racism got stronger over the course of 8 years, including for people who were willing to ride with Obama, at least in 2008. Like, what changed? And I think here's like one of the reasons this election result is so scary is that, once again, Democrats have been in a good position. Like, there was a wave election in 2018 that brought a pretty significant Democratic majority, and yet again it was rejected. Like, one of the things that one of the common threads in Democratic politics is Democrats get power, they win wave elections, and then come the next election cycle, all that support is evaporated. And it might have something to do with the fact that there is never anything to fucking show for it.
Right.
And and the reflexive need for liberals to pat themselves on the back for how smart and politically savvy they are, to use that insight to generate excuses for Democratic leadership for why they appear to be demonstrably incompetent. This is one of the reasons that this keeps happening. This is an election cycle that, the top of the ticket was probably weaker than we wanted, but also you have to look at, what have House Democrats done with power in the last 2 years? How did they respond to the COVID crisis?
Well, and the scariest thing is, and there are probably people shouting at their podcast right now, is like, well, what could have they done with McConnell in the Senate being, stopping anything that was coming over from the House, et cetera?
They could have made just a bigger stink about giving people money instead of saying, no,
Sure.
we don't want to give anybody money.
Well, 100%.
Just at least saying that
Yeah,
would have
yeah.
communicated to people that they were trying to help, but they did nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you. The thing that I want to wrap around to and be a bit of a little bit of a doomsayer, but also I hope that this is motivating in the sense that, like, you have to pay attention to this shit. There are things that, there are beaches that will never come back already, right? And that's not me segueing into talking about, climate change. Sometimes the thing has already happened. And so things like redistricting and gerrymandering, things like the loss, not controlling the Senate going forward, losing state legislatures across the country, which means that the redistricting won't be fixed, or rather there might be even worse redistricting going into the midterms. Those are losses that we haven't even felt yet, but will continue to push continue to force or prevent the Dems from making things happen in the next couple of years. And it's one of those things where sometimes I get frustrated because it's like, well, we lost this in some ways already. And so this is part of why, for me, I'm always looking for alternative, non-electoralist, or new strategies of electoralism to try to get around that stuff, to not just fall into the trap of trying to win the same constituencies or trying to rely on old coalitions, because the map has been literally controlled and changed by the GOP such that those strategies have decreasing effectiveness. And to ignore that as being kind of the biggest loss of this election cycle, I think is to miss the forest for the trees. The fact that these small elections, the fact that we lost seats in the House, the fact that the Senate has not switched blue, will limit the effectiveness of a presidency that I'm already not particularly optimistic about. And that is scary because of what the knock-on effect is. And this is why I'm like, part of the strategy for me of suggesting that there needs to be a bigger, introspection and change in leadership is because you can kind of, if not insulate yourself, you can put the sign out front that says under new management. And at that point, you can start making a different pitch for what the party can do in people's everyday lives. But you have to do that because otherwise, voters who are not up late looking at down ballot elections, looking at the ways in which districts have been changed, looking at ways in which voter suppression has been put into place, and are just seeing, hey, Biden got elected and then didn't do anything for 2 years. Those people don't understand necessarily why, and that's not me saying that they're dumb or something. That's just like no one can be engaged all the time. People are busy. People have families and work and lives outside of politics. But those people need a story. Those people need something to understand. How does this party ever do anything again? And for me, that means pretty dramatic change in management, pretty dramatic change in campaigning. We'll see. I don't know. Also, we should I want to just underscore something real quick because we haven't said it, but fuck Trump, fuck trying to steal the election, blah, 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 blah. You should already know what it is, but sometimes we get letters from people who are like, all you did for 25 minutes was badmouth Biden. It's like, you don't even care about Trump. And yeah, no shit. Why are you listening to this podcast?
I want to watch his. I'm looking forward to the toddler tantrum for 3 months and watching his ass walk out the door. I will take deep satisfaction in that, and that is not nothing.
You're right. Actually, just being able to be really mad vocally, it does a lot. It does a lot. We've had a horrible, fucking miserable 4 years. It's been fucking awful. It's been awful every day. It's made us feel very bad. So seeing it's not going to do anything, but watching him be humiliated has a cathartic effect. Mm-hmm. We talk so much. 100%. And the Gawker Unit, we talk so much about the difference between cathartic actions and actions that actually do something. But the cathartic actions have value. They do because you need that catharsis. So I'm going to call him a little bitch baby. I don't care. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. Dude sucks.
Yeah.
All my homies hate Trump. I know it's controversial.
So
Austin really going out on a limb here.
Yeah, that's right.
Damn. We're going to hear from the execs at Vice about this one.
Listen, time out. I'm going to tell a story that I've not told about 4 years ago and why we cannot fucking... So, week after the... Okay, I've told half of this story before. Half of this story was day after the election, everyone is fucking upset. All the EICs are like, no one coming to work today. It's chill. Everyone just chill out. And then that Friday, at that point, we were having weeklies with CL, who was my manager at the time, who was the head of kind of editorial, basically, at Vice. And we had this really great meeting with CL that was like, all right, where do we go from here? Quo vadis, what is the future of digital editorial coverage in a Trump era? How do we get our teams motivated? What are we excited about? Or where do we think we can make an incision? There was a lot of building people up, and that was great. A week after that, we got pulled into a similar room where it was all the EICs again, and then a high-ranking mind trust dude who was not a founder of the company, but was buds with the founders of the company. And then someone else from the media, from the entertainment industry with close ties to Vice, who was also there and was trying to get a vibe. And their pitch was, and I think Patrick was probably here for this, and I heard this story, heard me blow up at this. They were like, we got to move to the right. We got to have more voices here. It's clear we didn't understand what America was. We need to have reporters in the places Trump won. And
everyone was doing this at the time.
I know, totally. Well, this is my version of this, which included people who, again, were a step below Shane, a step below the person who was running the company at this time, not 4 steps below, not outside consultants who were wonks coming in. At one point, straight up said, do we need to ask people who don't believe in climate change to start writing for us? Do we need people who believe in looser gun laws to start writing for Vice? And obviously, the everyone inside of this room, all the EICs, revolted at this idea. But that is where the people with money were 4 years ago at the end of that election. The people with money who were trying to or who finance and run the media industry and many other industries saw this as and immediately thought, okay, the reaction to this has to be to meet Trump in the middle somehow. And I think that with the increase in the GOP turnout, I suspect we'll see a little bit of that again. We already see it again from a certain sort of like commentariat class who is already, lording over this and saying, this is why more of my Nazi friends have to come write with me at the New York Times. Go ahead, Rob.
To interject there.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there is a case to be made for that, but the commentariat dudes saying that are the ones who shouldn't have jobs. Like, correct. If we're talking about like trying to get a sense of what is happening in the country, Brett Stevens represents like 50 people. Like Brett Stevens like gives you no insight. Like no one gives a shit about what Brett Stevens has to say, least of all Republican voters. David Brooks has been a non-entity within his movement for like 25 years.
Totally.
On election night, and like also just like yesterday doing election coverage for multiple hours, Hassan Piker, the streamer, reached like about 250,000 people. Yesterday, when he was just doing like just chatting, like, like a stream that like a 3-hour just chatting stream, he got more viewers than the live stream from NBC at a certain point,
Right.
Like if we want to actually understand where young people are, new voters, people who are newly politically engaged, they are not going to be on these same networks, on these same prestige media, places as we've been used to, Like we've seen this, it is nice to know that like people like David Brooks don't matter. Like people like Andrew Sullivan are making Substacks or whatever. Like that's real fucking chill to know. But it's also really chill to know that there are places where people can go to be politically engaged that are outpacing these old places that are going to try to turn right with the news of this election. There's a lot of progressive people in this country, and it's all about finding each other. It reminds me so much of just like punk rock and zines. We used to have to like find each other through zines, but now we have different methods that are faster, and we can use them to organize.
Really quick, a shout out that Gita has a piece up on the site about the Hassan Piker streams. What is that called? What's the name of that piece?
It is Hassan Piker's The Future of Election Night Coverage, which I really do believe. Like, it's not just that he is more in line with my values, but it's like when he's like clicking on 1,000,000 different tabs and can't find the right one, I'm like, I know what this is. This is how I figure out things about politics already.
Anyone else have any final thoughts as this 30-minute politics minute that we all agreed to comes to an end? We only went a little over. We only went, I know we all said 30 minutes, and so we're at like 32 minutes now, so I feel like we pretty much nailed it. Patrick, I love the face you have on. That's the face of determination.
No, I'm great. Politics. I'm satisfied.
You're satisfied. All right. Do you want to take a break now and come back and maybe make this a 2-break show?
I don't know that we need to.
You think it'll be that quick? You think this will be? All right. Let's talk about the Xbox.
Wow, Pat's already crowding my segment. Okay, sure.
God.
Rob Zachary, you have an article on the site called "The New Xbox Consoles Are Built to Eliminate Every One of Gaming's Hassles."
And that's all they're built to do. like, okay. And that's the thing. Like, is your big problem? Has this ever happened to you? You're sitting down with a delicious warm snack while you're going to play some games, but then your game starts loading. And like, that's kind of what Xbox is like offering, is kind of like right now, because there was so little available during the, like pre-release window, we've had these machines for the last 2 weeks.
We should be clear that like some of this will change before this machine launches. Like there will be games. There was a moment where okay, so this is an oddity. I don't know. I haven't fully read your piece, Rob, so I wasn't sure if this like little bit came in, but it's part of like the pre-release process. Like Rob got both the X and the S, and then I got an X. Was that like Watch Dogs Legion was like we got a code for that from Microsoft to like redeem, download on the Xbox, and it didn't work immediately because it was like tied to like it actually going live for like so like regular players on the store. It wasn't like an early press code. It works, but it was operating through backwards compatibility. It didn't have like a Series X or Series S like patch, which was like the extra sheen and ray tracing and all that sort of stuff. And it worked for like a day and a half, and then we got like a note from Microsoft that's like, actually, we're going to turn that off. And so they turned off the backwards compatibility for Watch Dogs Legion, and then you just weren't allowed to play that game. Even though it functioned properly and like was playable on this Series X, they only wanted you to experience it with the Series X sheen, and so that game just sort of like disappeared. But we'll have a patch in a couple of days.
Well, that's been super weird too. So they were like, it's been revoked. And on
they turned it off. They're like they have the ability in the back to just be like, nope. I mean, which obviously, yes, they're all digital licenses. They can do what the fuck they want to.
We don't own anything. Like,
right. But it was like it was actually, you don't see that literally happen. It's just one of those sort of like threats that hangs existentially in our digital world.
So
like,
despite it being
also. There's the multiple people who are like writing about like how Assassin's Creed Valhalla ran on their Xbox Series X when like we were explicitly told that game will not run till November 10th. But like if you're Gene Park at the Washington Post, it apparently runs on your Xbox so they didn't flag his account or something.
Oh my god!
Look,
Rob and I can't run
darkness, and we just had to make sure that he get those Valhalla impressions on Series X out the door.
Is it not too busy faving hentai on Twitter? Is that not? Gene made a tweet about it. It's not me. That's not me looking at Gene Park's likes. I'm not dragging Gene Park. Gene was like, instead of following election stuff, I'm just going to start faving hentai. That's all. Okay, continue.
So I think the Xbox is in a weird place right now because during this entire review window, what we had were a handful of games that did receive optimization updates for the Series X. And it's what you'd expect from Microsoft right now, right? It's like Forza Horizon 4, it's Sea of Thieves, it's Gears 5.
Gears Tactics, please, come on. Need the high-res sheen on my strategy game. That game was actually pretty.
That game was fun.
That game was pretty. Yeah, that game looks good.
I like that.
Gears Tactics 2, I think would be very good.
I agree.
But the thing is, and after I finished my review last night, I was like, okay, am I just like kind of nearsighted or something? Can I just not perceive like what the big improvements are? And so I went over to Digital Foundry's like video on the Gears 5 update for Series X. And Digital Foundry, like, I think they're probably best in class at like breaking down what these technical improvements and what these changes in like rendering technique actually mean on the screen. I'm watching this video and I'm like, I don't know how you're supposed to notice this as someone playing these games. Like, even when they slow it down, like, just look at the edges on this model of a book in the background of the scene. And I'm like, that thing is like the size of my fire on the screen.
Right.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's so tiny.
Well, I've told this story before, but like when Austin and I at E3, like a couple of years back, I think when the Xbox One X was announced, and we went to this behind the scenes thing where they were like going to show off a couple of games running at 4K, and they showed Gears 4, and it was like one of the impressive, like you're piloting a big mech, there's lots of explosions, and we walked out of it going, I think the Minecraft stuff looked better than
Minecraft
Gears
stuff looked better.
4K.
And they never shipped that Minecraft stuff, by the way.
No, they never did.
never shipped that pack. So,
but it was one of those things where when you are shown, and we can get into this when we get into the PlayStation stuff because I can echo some similar thoughts, but like when you are just shown 4K, it doesn't have like the hit you in the gut, like the way that like SD to HD, like there was just no way to ignore like how much sharper it looked. And here, when you are just presented with this is how it looks, you end up, as Rob said, because I played some Gears 5 last night, and I have it now on like a 4K TV, and I'd played a bunch of Gears 5 on a 1080p set on a regular Xbox, and I was like, yeah. I guess
it looks better. It does. I'm looking at this Digital Foundry
Rob
thing.
said, like, I can't perceive it. Like, literally, your eyeballs cannot perceive it. This is like just a fact that is true.
Well,
like,
I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go for that. I would not go that far because we'll get into the PlayStation. I discovered that I can tell the difference between 1080p and 4K, and it was upsetting.
You've been looking about it a lot, and you know what to look for. But the regular person, you don't have a screen that's big enough to really make the distinction noticeable. Meaningfully noticeable, like on a day to day. This is like the basic facts of like the people
is this true?
that
is
do
this
cinema. Cado, you know that this is true. Like there's a certain level, a certain amount of pixels that your eyes cannot perceive unless the screen is big enough and you are far enough distance away.
Yeah,
this is like basic photography and cinema stuff.
The distance thing is a big thing. Where like, especially like. Most people don't have the biggest fucking TVs, but still sit far from them because just that's how people watch TV. And it's like at that distance, you're not gonna fucking see anything different.
I have a degree in cinema studies. Like, don't fight me on this. Listen. I know this is true. This is different. There's another type of like Ultra HD format that's out now where things are more noticeable, but 4K seems to be the thing that's catching on because it's like snappier to say. It was like all marketing. And like the thing about 4K is like you have to have like a massive screen and you have to sit pretty far away from it to really reap the benefits of that file format. But some people do have that, so I guess it's really nice for them.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think like where the benefits are more noticeable is it's less. So I think one of the clarifying things was when I fired up the Series S, which outputs at 1440p as opposed to 4K. 1440 is like, what is it? Ultra high res, but not ultra high def. It's what a lot of like nicer monitors are running at right now.
A lot of PC folks have like gotten into 1440p in like the last 5 years.
Which, by the way, also makes it a very good machine to like if your entire gaming setup is at like a desk with like a PC and shit. It becomes much easier to like plug your monitor into the Xbox Series S.
Mhm.
But one of the things that kind of did jump out at me yesterday, as I was sort of playing through the opening hours of Gears on both systems, is that the Series S, despite being at a considerably lower resolution, you can see that when you sort of play them side by side. Like you can tell like which one is a little more dense in terms of detail, a little higher res. But in motion, what you notice mostly is like what communicates the most visual quality is like, and this has been the focus of this generation of hardware, is like lighting and rendering techniques around textures and post-processing effects. And Series S has all that just at a lower resolution, but it still reads as very good looking games because I think that is most of what we're reacting to. But also it does mean that you see, again, I've talked about this, a lot in the lead up to this console generation. When we talk about diminishing returns, it is hard to gather the family around the TV and be like, behold, look at this volumetric lighting. Kids, you see that fog? You see,
so now HDR, like if I put these two, the sun is gonna glare, and I think HDR is like far more impressive than 4K.
That's the thing that I'm thinking about replacing my TV over. I have that like entry level HDR that is like, oh yeah, it's sort of brighter, but I've seen real HDR. Yeah. I will say the first time I saw HDR was at a PS4 Pro event where they showed Mass Effect Andromeda, a game I don't really like that much. But if you were like, Austin, you can right now this second snap your fingers and see that stuff again, that'd be great. That'd feel really good.
just spin that universe around and just watch that.
Wow, look at how bright this shit
off.
is. There was specifically like going into a cave with bioluminescent like mushrooms and shit. I was like, this looks sick as shit. Those mushrooms are glowing, and I haven't had that experience because my HDR is just not that good. And I might replace my TV on. Not over that. I also have a friend who just moved. It'd be good to be like, here's a TV, anyway.
HDR is like has a real tangible, immediately noticeable benefit that like everyone can understand. The more pixels, there's diminishing returns.
Give me those nits, though. Give me those nits. That's what I'm So I think it becomes difficult to look at these games that are being upgraded for the new Xboxes because you're already taking things that were built to run on older hardware. They already look good, and you're basically saying, all right, well, now the way these point light sources are filtered through a haze just looks incredible now. And it's like, yeah, but that's not, it already looked good. So we're kind of splitting hairs here. Also, just as an aside, I have this happen a lot where I see these sort of side-by-side comparisons of like, this is how it looks on the Series X. This is how it looked on the Xbox One X. And it also feels like some of these rendering techniques, because they're so advanced and they give like supposedly like more natural looks, sometimes I find their effects look more muted and less impressive because like the cruder techniques call attention to like pools of shadow and texture and the textures, the way that the textures are lit, because they're probably a little exaggerated. And yes, like they're not natural, but again, like this is kind of an aesthetic thing as well, right? Like it's not like visual media, it's not about perfectly reproducing reality as we perceive it. It is about bringing an impression across of reality. And so a lot of times you look at side-by-side shots of like, well, using this rendering technique, it looks like this, but here on the older tech, it looks, obviously cruder. A lot of times I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, damn, I guess I'm a Philistine because the older, shittier tech looks better? I don't know. So, but setting that aside, I think the big issue right now is in a week, there's going to be a lot of games with updates for Series X and Series S. And we'll be able to see what improvements the hardware brings to the games that are launching this fall. So when we all get the Gene Park treatment and Valhalla starts working, we can live that life. We can get that upgraded Watch Dogs Legion and really appreciate holographic projections of the Queen over the Thames bridges. But, just DedSec as fuck never looked so good. But I think it'll be a little while before we really have anything we can point to and be like, damn, you gotta get on that.
Well, that's the thing, right?
X.
Even the stuff you're talking about is stuff that's cross-generational and is like, here are the improvements here. What we don't have, and I think this is a failure of the launch lineup, which we've talked about at length earlier this year, is like there's not just not a killer app for this thing. I don't know that there's like I'd buy that. That's you know what?
Even Halo Infinite, like part of its pitch was you're going to be able to play this on like our whole line of boxes, including that Xbox One that you bought, 7 years ago,
right?
Which seemed to severely constrain, at least based on what they'd shown, what they could even like do with the visual fidelity.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't have like that's like the.
But it doesn't even have like a Fantavision. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't even have a Dynasty Warriors 2.
Fantavision.
It doesn't have a
rules.
Evergrace.
I love Fantavision.
Bring back Fantavision.
I was pitching this in, to some people at Sony in a Discord that we're in, and I was like, Fantavision with HDR and like that, like it's a perfect time for a downloadable Fantavision sequel to show off the fireworks tech of the. I don't know, just ray tracing seems like that'd be a thing for Fantavision.
It's like in
right?
like in cool places, and the light is like sure, ray tracing.
Yes.
That's light.
Sure, ray tracing.
But
that to me is ray tracing.
That to me is ray tracing.
Now that's ray tracing.
Rob, is there anything else like? So we know the software library isn't great, but like, do you have any thoughts on the UI stuff or backwards compatibility or any of the other shit that is like this is what Xbox is? So Game Pass, etc.
I guess both the most impressive thing about this is also the most underwhelming. Like literally, it feels like the exact same machine. Like I was startled by when I unhooked, like this is how I opened my review. I plugged in the Series X and it was like, you want to import your old settings? And I was like, yeah, of course. And it was like, I just turned on the same machine. I sort of did a double take and I was like, is this sort of a weird pre-launch thing where nothing has changed? But this
the
is
answer
kind
is
by design.
No, it's like buying a new phone where you want all that or the theory is
pulls your backup. It's just the new phone.
It's just the tech.
The camera's better.
Right down to the hey, remember those apps you liked? Here they are.
Here they are.
Like they're the icons. You just have to install them. But the flip side
which is the bet they're making. That's the bet they're making, right?
Yeah. Flip side is everything carried over. Like my entire library from Xbox One is there. Like, and this was deep in pre-launch. Pretty much everything on Game Pass and in my library that I tested was able to launch. And I'm not gonna lie, like. Just running Dishonored 2 at just like maximum, like, what would have been like maximum fuck off settings on PC, on the Series X. Like that game looked incredible. Like it was just genuinely like kind of jaw dropping every time. Ace Combat 7, not only looks good, but it works with the quick resume, which is basically, this is I think maybe the big quality of life upgrade it offers. Quick resume is a little more impressive than I expected it would be. Basically, the Xbox can basically put a bookmark in a bunch of your games where you're playing them. And then you go off and do whatever. And then when you click on that game the next time, the quick resume icon comes up. And like after a beat, you are just plunged back into the game right where you were. Right. And Xbox was already kind of like this on the One X, where like if you went and watched Netflix, and then you went back to a game, you would go right back to the game. Like it never unloaded the game state. This is like that, except it can do it for a dozen games concurrently. And so you can sort of hop between them, with whatever is on rotation for you at that moment. You can hop between them all without ever having to really see a load screen. I tremble to think what the energy cost of that quality of life upgrade is over the course of like a week, a month of like, you don't play a game for a week, but the Xbox is got it in its head. I'm curious what the the power draw over time is.
Well, it also keeps that the quick resume upon, like, if you just take out that power cord, it like you plug it back in. Like people would tested like fully removing power from the device, putting it back in, and it. So yeah, if you're worried about the how much power it's drawing, apparently just unplug the thing. Yeah, I don't know how long. Like maybe that's not the case a week from now. But I know there was some. I saw a video that was showing how like they unplugged it, I think overnight, and then plugged it back in, and it was able to resume games the following day.
Speaking of power, though, I do have to call out. So the Xbox Series X has that big ass fan on its head. Basically, it's got like.
Is it loud?
It's not loud, and okay. I think it is not loud because it is a big fan that just pulls a lot of air without having to spin really really high.
Sure,
but it puts out a disquieting amount of heat. Let us say. Like last night, I was playing on the Series X, and then I had to go over there and swap out for the Series S. And so I went I have an open-sided TV console, so it like had plenty of room to vent. But there was this like pocket of hot air that was like a space heater or a hairdryer had been left running, and that was just from having the Xbox like on a menu screen for like 20 minutes. And so like I do think. One, it's probably a bit of a power thirsty machine, but two, think about ventilation for this thing. Think about what that heat is blowing onto. That would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right. Any other thoughts? Just go to break, come back, talk about the PS5, talk about PS5 launch games, and
some of them.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not as exciting as you might think. So we will be right back. There's exciting stuff in there. I don't want to undersell it. All right. Be right back.
Yeah.
We are back, and that means we can talk about the PS5. And also, again, some launch games for the PS5. I don't know what's on PS5. What we can talk about, can't talk about.
Up front, we don't have Demon's Souls. I just want to make that clear. Like, right. if you came here to think, what did we think of the Demon's Souls update, remake, remaster, whatever?
But no one will have that. Presumably,
no one will have that. That is not Gene Park is not secretly playing.
What about these teeth? Can we talk about these teeth?
Yeah,
well, this is publicly available information now, right?
Until I see those teeth with HDR, I don't want to speculate
sure,
about the teeth. I need 4K, 60 frames per second HDR teeth.
What are those? Why do you need so many frames for teeth?
Teeth move. They just move very little at a time, and that's why you need all the frames.
Right. Okay. Catch them.
They might only move 3 frames out of the 60, but you might lose those if you only have 30 frames. Right. You know what I mean? It's like half the chance to see the frames when the teeth are moving.
I need my new child to have like a PS5 GPU so her teeth can push through her mouth a little faster. Seems painful. She's not enjoying it.
All right. So who has been fucking around with the PS5 at this point?
Well, I'm fucking around with the PS5.
Yeah, Patrick? With Rob, Gita, and I all received PS5s. You know, Rob has been spending his time sort of like tasked with PlayStation 5 stuff. Gita was tasked with reviewing, as of when this goes up, Gita, you'll have a review of Miles Morales, and then I reviewed Astro's Playroom, Bug Snacks, and sort of like a general review of the hardware. But I think we should start with Miles. I think like Miles might be our way in to unpack certain things about the machine.
We just had our politics minute. This is how I talked about it on election night with my 2 friends who play games but are more plugged into politics, like politics people. One of them's in the DSA, one of them works in politics in DC. And so this is the situation that Miles Morales, the video game, will set up for us and have us accept as reality. So Miles Morales has just moved from Brooklyn to Harlem. His father, who is a deceased police officer. His mother is Rhea Morales, who is running for city council in Harlem after it's been emphasized a lot that they've just moved there and don't know anyone. She's also the widow of a deceased police officer, but is running on what is implied to be, it's never outright stated, but implied to be a left-wing, series of policies focusing around getting a large tech conglomerate not to not to develop in Harlem.
So it's like a get out of here Amazon New York situation.
Yeah, it's very much Amazon HQ3.
Yeah.
So does any of this really make sense when you think about New York politicians and just the way that NYPD deceased widow wife people are? Not really. It doesn't really make any sense with, it only makes sense. Go ahead. The number one thing you would say if you're running against Rhea Morales on city council is, hey, she just moved here. She just moved here like a little while ago. How does she possibly know any of the issues that you guys are facing?
Well, I think New Yorkers in the world of Spider-Man Miles Morales would be sympathetic to the fact that they haven't built the models for Brooklyn. And so Rio had to move because that is the only seat available in the plane of existence.
In the world of the game. She had to move to Manhattan. God. So
also, what is that river that cuts that is just at the in the middle of Harlem that marks the edge of the world?
Yeah, you can't go to the cloisters. There's a river there now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to the cloisters.
You gotta wait for the cloisters.
Okay, what did that happen at the end of Spider-Man PS4, or did I miss that? What's the
new river showed up? More New
Huh.
York. There's a river here. Yeah, no, it's so here. That's just a one snapshot into one of the things that I thought about constantly while this game was happening. I'd have so much fun being Miles Morales. I have to really want to just shout out the voice actor for Miles, who's Najee Ajader. Fantastic work as Miles. He's got this wonderful little nerd voice, but once you put the mask on, you can feel the confidence come in. You're really watching a kid learn that they're the class clown. It really feels like you're watching someone learn something new about themselves. And plus you get Miles' traditional powers in the comics, which means yes, you turn invisible, yes, you gain electricity powers, Venom in the game. And that just changes the pace of combat from the original.
And you get to watch
Spider-Man
him get
so
them.
much.
It doesn't just jump in the way that Spider-Man PS4 did, where it was everyone knows Peter Parker. We don't need to just skip into what's he been doing for a couple of years. Whereas Miles, there's kind of a Miles Assance happening in with that character, but it is still relatively new, where it is it's deeply satisfying in the game where you get to watch him it's interesting to watch him do the Peter Parker arc, in his own way of getting comfortable in the job, in the role, discover, he discovers these powers randomly where he doesn't understand how he triggers them and just whoops, I'm invisible. And it's incredibly charming. And the voice actor is a huge part of selling that aspect of
everybody does a great performance, but I think the voice actor for Miles is really, really wonderful. I came away from this game loving Miles and wanting to see that voice actor return for this performance again. I just loved him. But the problem is the New York that Miles exists in doesn't make any fucking sense. So the number one thing that comes up again, and the Sony Insomniac walked into the ways it doesn't make sense too. They directly walked into them. And on the one hand, this is a game that wants to be a very good Spider-Man game and make people love Miles Morales. It succeeds on every count, I think, in that way. But it also wants to be a game that is sensitive to the political moment that we live in. And in there, it'll just walk right up to the issues that people are protesting against and then turn directly around and not even talk about them at all. There's a series of side quests you can do that you can get Spider-Man, you can get Miles a new Spider-Man suit, the Uptown Pride suit. It's really cool. It's yellow and black. I loved it a lot. But when it's gifted to you, it is gifted beneath a Black Lives Matter mural. What are the people who are protesting Black Lives Matter protesting against? Police violence. Who was Miles' dad? An NYPD officer. What was a thing that I personally chanted while marching in Black Lives Matter marches. How do you spell racist? NYPD. This is something the game just refuses to confront. The police might as well be in a different universe. It's absolutely bizarre.
So are they
the same out every single time?
In the same universe as Spider-Man PS4 though. Like Spider-Man 4 PS4 was very. I mean, a similar side quest that you're speaking to, where you're unlocking something in PS4 in Spider-Man PS4 was you're installing. Watchtowers for the local police so that they could track people. And so actually on the time scale of in Insomniac Spider-Man world, this is a huge leap forward in terms of how they're even handling these issues. And
are they just not? Basically, my question is do the cops just straight up basically not show up?
They do not talk. They show up. They do not talk to you. You cannot interact with them. You can walk up to them and they'll just do a cop shooting animation. They will not register you. Sometimes they will say things like, "Oh, we don't know how this Spider-Man acts," but it doesn't explain the fact that you might as well just be in parallel universes slipping past each other. It's weird. It's really weird.
In my early hours, the cops kind of yell at Miles a lot. Admittedly, in the opening sequence, Miles is having some adjusting.
It's got a big issue, really bad. It's like the opening of a teen comedy from the 80s, except on the scale of superhero stuff.
The mass destruction caused at Miles' expense.
Dude, also, it was good that, if we're talking about, okay, so you play the, you play on Xbox and you're I don't know, what are they doing with all this power? What's it get you? First, remember just how glacial loading was in Spider-Man on PS4 and just how endlessly that game would would labor over setting up the next sequence if you're playing on a launch PS4. This game really does open with kind of a powerhouse set piece where it's just we are going to throw so much money at your eyeballs in the first 25 minutes of this game.
Dazzling.
And you're not even going to see what's happening around you. It's going to happen so fast, but our machine can run at that speed and it's going to be just go for the throat, seamless. And that was kind of
No, so many moments in gameplay, especially when you're just swarmed by enemies and then you trigger everything. So many moments where I know on my OG PS4, the PS4 Slim that David has, would just trip up this thing and I'd be sitting there waiting for the frames to catch up to me, where it's just smooth as butter, especially with the effects from the Venom powers, which are liquidy, very flashy effects, the liquid spray of electricity. You can tell it is an effect that takes some processing power. Nothing trips it up. The only time I experienced frame rate issues was when I was using the Spider-Man suit, not with the mod that makes it run in 24 frames per second. Just the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse
or the
suit.
Spider-Verse, yeah.
Yeah, the Spider-Verse suit, for some reason, that made my PS5 drop a couple of frames a couple of times. But that's the only point. In terms of loading screens on this technical thing, I mean, I only really notice those things when they are particularly bad. I noticed them on Spider-Man because they were particularly bad. I would just get on fights in the group DM that I'm in, while I was waiting for things to load on the PS4 version. With PS5, it's just David was, able to do work next to me and watch it like it was a movie, essentially.
Right.
It's beautiful. That's another thing, the verisimilitude of the city and the fact that it is not interrupted by constant loading screens makes you feel you're constantly being swept into this fantasy, swept into this beautiful version of New York. I haven't been to Central Park since before the pandemic. I haven't been to so many places in Manhattan that I love. David and I are trying to plan our first visit to the Met since the pandemic started. I saw these places and they look exactly like the places I missed. And during holiday season, when the city looks so beautiful, it really brought tears to my eyes at a couple of points. I miss it. I miss it so much. I thought playing this game would be about my nostalgia for the city. But then you just run into shit that doesn't make sense with the experience I've had living here. It's the dedication to the material reality of New York is so on point that when you get to the emotional reality of what it's like to be a New Yorker, you just are completely taken out of the action. It's really, really weird.
I didn't listen to the entirety of the Watch Dogs Legion podcast that I think it was you, Rob, Austin, and Galt was on that as well, correct? But I want to say one of the things that came out of that was Like, look, I think Spider-Man, Insomniac's Spider-Man universe is inherently conservative. There are just certain ways they're telling that story and the world they're constructing, and part of that is related to Spider-Man as a character, like more broadly. But like you can see like the constraints politically on like a Watch Like Legion that was made in 2016. You can see like where that game started and where it ends up over the course of like just the way the production cycle of games of this scope.
Right. Like
And
there's a way in which if that game comes out in 2017 or in 2016, you know, like, oh wow, okay, this is
if you look at Legion as a
taking some
game
stuff
that
seriously, but it feels like it's behind the beat, you know?
Right. Like a game that was started pre-production in like early, I think 2016, and then comes out in late 2020. You see that, and you know, Miles Morales also I think is a game that if you look at it as like my understanding is it started as like an expansion for the PS4 version, and then morphed into something a little bit bigger for the PS5. Like you can see like, oh, if that game was in development in 2018, now comes out in 2020. Like you can see where it clashes both against like the conservative nature of that universe to begin with, and what its understanding of what like the police's role is, and like their participation with Spider-Man as a character, alongside the fact that like, you know, the protests of the summer were just too late to be even incorporated or reacted to in the production cycle of a game like this. But even if that's true, like that may be the reality of the production cycle, it is nonetheless like your Gita's emotional reaction to how that lands at the end of 2020, right after the election, is nonetheless true, regardless of how like the game gets there from a production standpoint.
Well, it's not like Miles is a new character who hasn't had that writers haven't had to consider these sorts of issues before. Right.
One of the big issues, though, with this game and dealing with Miles and everything that Miles' life entails in a DLC for a longer game is that a lot of the nuance has to be squeezed out of the plot. There are specific things I noted where I was like, that character's third act just happened off screen. Like this series of side quests really feel like they should be part of the main plot. There's a series, one of the best side missions in the game having to deal with Uncle Aaron and Uncle Aaron's relationship to Miles' father. It is a side quest that is revealed in the last third of the game, and you're just like, this could have been the whole third act. And instead, we are just going rush straight to the finale. It's just like you understand the business reasons why this game is shorter, but it does a huge disservice to the story, and I think it will disappoint a lot of people. That said, I like a lot of the side quests, a lot of the characters. I finished this, man. We gave me so much time to finish this, and then I finished this. Oh, God. How long did I play? Like a little over 10 hours, I would say. Yeah, I would say 10 to 15.
Yeah, an expansion is not the
even
wrong
particularly crunchy weekend.
No, I didn't even touch it over the weekend. I finished it on that Thursday, and then I wrote my review on that Friday. Like it is
that's
not
in line with like
game.
Lost Legacy, like that's roughly the size.
It's exactly the size they said it would be. But if they were going to tell this story with all of these political ramifications, there's some shit you can see they could have just taken out of the story and just removed. Like Uncle Aaron, as much as we love him, throwing him in this game means that it has to deal with the politics of incarceration on top of that, and they just like it doesn't even bring it up, you know? Like these are all things that like a black it's not just that they wanted this game to be a Spider-Man game. You can tell that they want this game to be for Black people. It is a representation of Blackness. Like the journey for Miles is from being the other Spider-Man to being our Spider-Man. That collective like pronoun, our, meaning the people of Harlem. People of Harlem being Black people. You know, when you open it up, the game, you see him wearing, the puffy jack with the fur on it and the contrast lining, and he's listening to some fake hip hop song with a bunch of snare samples over the swelling strings of the Spider-Man theme. And you're like, they want this game to be Black as fuck. Well, that means engaging with the political reality of Blackness. And the specific things they've brought up here, the Black Lives Matter movement, cannot be effectively engaged with in 10 to 15 hours. It just can't. Or
not these 10 to 15 hours, at least, right? Like I'm more one that actually said, I'm going to focus on that stuff. Probably could have done that, but then no. Rob?
Yeah,
I did kind of feel like one of the things skewing this game a little bit as well is it's in this weird place of it's following on from a really well-received Spider-Man game that was also its own take on the character and the story and the setting. But then it also badly wants to, not just in terms of the costume that sort of calls out to into the Spider-Verse, but like it also wants to evoke that. And I think I think that's the real reason why Uncle Aaron like has such a major like plot point here, is that the game knows that Uncle Aaron means a lot to the people playing this game now.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of exist now in this alternate timeline where like he's the one who lives and remains a parental mentor to Miles, and Jefferson is gone.
And Maddie Myers also noted to me that in the comics, the original version of the comics, Miles' father is not a cop. And that is something that was invented for Into the Spider-Verse. So that's another import from there. I'm not 100% on that. And I can like literally watch Austin Walker Google this right now.
Yeah, I'm like,
why not? Let me just.
Well, Maddie, I've been was thinking about
you're
this.
telling me
time.
Jeff Davis wasn't a cop?
Right? Uncle still like, my father, a doctor senator, wasn't a cop.
But I think so. The game, I think, is trying to sort of satisfy people who want to have a little taste of their Miles that they have from Into the Spider-Verse. But I also found, so you remember early on, right after Peter Parker is like, hey man, I know you're learning a lot on the job, but I gotta go.
I also know you just truly fucked something up because you're new and you're still figuring it out, but I think I need to go on vacation.
I booked vacation tickets, man. They're non-refundable. I gotta go. You'll be fine. But right after that, so Miles has this moment where he's like, I'm Spider-Man. Like, there's only one in New York right now. I'm it. And there's this cool moment. He's on the rooftop. The music comes up. I don't remember what track it is, but it's clearly trying to evoke the leap of faith montage in the Spider-Verse. And I'm starting to feel it. Like, I'm up there on the roof. Like, the beat kicks in. I'm like, yeah. And then, bloop, open this menu screen and, trigger these unlocks. Blorp. Okay, now you can activate this ability, and the music just drops down, and you're like, okay, but I really wanted to, like, I was in a moment here, and like after you go through the forced tutorial, then it's like, all right, Ty, you're gonna go swing through that city, and the music comes back in at the full mix. But it did remind me as well of like games like this kind of can't get out of their own way. Like it couldn't hold off on that video gamey moment long enough for you to just like have that beat where you're fucking Spider-Man and you're like soaring above the city and the music's right. That would have been cool, but unfortunately we had to do some tutorial stuff there. It did feel like one of the things that is boxing in a game like this is it wants to evoke these cinematic moments that we all just had. It's an enormously popular movie, but also it's a Spider-Man game that has some kind of half-baked progression mechanics wedged into it, and it's got to like keep interrupting the action to make room for that.
What was so funny to me, speaking of half-baked progression mechanics, is for the first third of the game, it introduces you to this friendly neighborhood app. And then it's like, look at all the requests you can do on there. Check it out. And then as soon as you open the app one time and close it, Spider-Man will narrate to himself, time to go on to the next mission. And then later on in the game, after I had just taken a break and been like, I'm tired of the story. I just want to do all the stuff on this app. I want to see the people of New York that I can meet. Every time I would get to the next chapter, Miles would be like, time to check out the stuff on the Friendly Neighborhood app. And I'd look at it and it would not it doesn't get repopulated after you finish them all. So I would just not have any quests. And then I would close it. And he'd be like, well, I've done enough helping my fellow man.
Man, can you imagine how much help Spider-Man could do with like helping people move apartments?
Oh my God, please.
Like if you're in a third floor walk up, like Spider-Man's your guy.
Just like have him do like some netting underneath your window so you can shove everything out the window so you go down the stairs, right? That'd be perfect.
You're done. That's it.
We're
perfect.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Any other final Miles thoughts, or should we hit more PS5 stuff?
That's good.
Miles has a really cute love interest in this game. At least I hope she's a love interest. There's this deaf character, Haley, who's a street artist, and Miles can sign. They established that he took it at Brooklyn Visions Academy, which I think was very sweet. And they have like a very touching couple of moments that I just hope they bring her back. I just really hope they bring her back for whatever next game they do. I love her.
Yeah. All right. Patrick, you were starting something. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, I was saying Miles is good. And,
And Patrick
I won't
loves
go...
Astrobot, and Astrobot's his son.
Yeah. Astro's Playroom, which can kind of get us to talking about the PlayStation 5 like itself a little bit more, is basically a tech showcase for the DualSense controller. I would still like in the grand scheme of things, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Series S are like part of the transition of gaming consoles just becoming like other devices in our lives, like iterative. You know, like the PS5 has a faster hard drive, like it has a lot of the similar things that the Xbox has, but the places where it is a little more unique is like in the DualSense controller with the haptic triggers and the microphone, and Astro's Playroom, which comes from the folks that did Astro, Astrobot VR, and we mentioned this on a podcast a week or so ago. Like, it's just a really good demonstration of like what this tech is that I think will probably end up getting ignored a year from now, other than in first party games. Like to touch on Bugsnax quickly, like that game just basically doesn't use it. Like Astro's Playroom like makes the DualSense seem like it is like this magical toy in your hand. Like it is truly like impressive, some of the things that it is doing to like convey the sense of like sand blowing or just going across a bridge and you feel like thunk, 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 thunk. Like it's so hard to explain that in words. Like when you hold that controller, it somehow makes it kind of magical to just walk across a bridge. Like it feels like you are walking across a bridge. And then you play Bugsnax and it's more like how Rumble is in general, where it's like occasionally it moves, and it's not doing anything of any particular nuance. And it strikes me it may be the equivalent of like the Switch's HD Rumble, where like it was so cool how you could feel marbles moving in your hands, and then just no other game used that going forward. It's a neat controller. I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of use for it going forward. I mean, I guess I expect Demon Souls might use it or something like that, but it's hard to tell how much of that stuff is just gee whiz launch neat stuff, and like how much of that will actually be around
long term,
a year or two from now. Yeah,
totally. That stuff sounds so good. Like I'm seeing some of those videos come out of the controller, seeing some of the stuff from Astro's Playroom seemed just like that's it. If Rob is positioning the Xbox as being more of the same, but in a way that's like sort of complementary, like, oh yeah, like it just does the thing. The DualSense seems very much like the splashy next gen feeling thing. If people continue to use it, who knows? But yeah.
And you can't turn it off. I should say, like, for accessibility reasons, like, a lot of people have, including myself, have focused on like how cool it is, and I think it is interesting and additive, but it is not.
You can't turn it off?
No, you can. Oh, you can turn all that stuff off. You can play Astro's
I was very
Playroom.
Confused. Okay.
Oh, sorry. You can turn all that stuff off. It is not something that's like required to play Astro's Playroom. I think Astro's Playroom is a totally fine and good and interesting and enjoyable platformer. Like even if you kind of strip that stuff out, but it is not the case.
And it's a pack-in.
It's a pack-in. Yeah, it's free.
That's cool.
And I got probably 8 hours of it. I did everything you could. I collected everything. Right. I didn't do all the trophies because a lot of it was like, here are hidden trophies. Go do something gimmicky in a level. But I mean, it was the case where it was like, I ended up using some of the new interface stuff from the PS5 where I would collect 9 out of 10 of the collectibles, and it's like I just want to get this last one. And when we first got the PS5, none of the hint stuff was in there yet, and then maybe a week later that started populating in some of the games. And so it's like I hit the PlayStation button, like brought up these activity tabs, and it was like, hey, you're in this level, which means you're probably trying to collect the rest of these little bits that are contained in the stage. Like, do you want some help doing that? It's like, okay, so I click that. And it's like very confusing to figure out like how to get through like the layers of menus. I have real problems with just the interface design of the PS5 in general. It shouldn't be that hard to turn it off, and instead it is. Like on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, you just held down their center buttons and would bring up the ability to turn it off. Yeah. You cannot do that on the PlayStation 5. You have to.
What do you get?
You tap. So if you hold down the PlayStation button, it brings you back to the main UI. If you press it, if you tap it once, it brings up like a control center sort of thing, where it's like at the bottom you can customize like various things. Like, do you want streaming to like a streaming trigger to be here? Do you want your notifications to be here? Like, there are different options for like based on
none of that is turn this off.
It is, but it's all the way at the end. So it's like you tap the PlayStation button, tap down, and then hit left to like go all the way to the right, and then turn it off. It's like it's a small thing, but it's like indicative of like larger like interface issues with the PS5 in general, where it feels like they took a Photoshop file and then turned it into an interface. Someone was like, "This looks cool," and it's like, "Yeah, that does look cool." And then when you use it, you're like, "Oh, like we introduced friction for things we'd already solved in the past." And I guess that'll get fixed, and like that power. I think that power thing is going to become one where like a lot of people raise their hand and get annoyed, and they'll find a way around it. But anyway, it's like kind of confusing to like get through the different layers of the interface. But what ultimately you can like get that little video to snap to the side of the screen, and I was able to watch the little Astrobot like walk around, find the thing I was looking for, and I was able to collect it. What I actually ended up doing was, often I don't want the full solution. I just want like a hint of like, I don't want to look around this whole goddamn level. I just want to kind of know like, hey man, just like go poke around over like in this section with the vines, and then that'll give me like a more contained space. So that's what I ended up doing. Was often the videos would start in the area you're supposed to look at. So all I wanted to do was just like pull up the video, see, oh, okay, they're saying explore over there. And so then I'd go over there, and then I would be able to have the satisfaction of finding it for myself, but narrow down the space in which I was looking, which is often what I would do with YouTube videos too. It's just like, I just kind of want to know where to poke my head around. And so I found that to be really satisfying, and had me, allowed me to then find everything, which I think Astrobot, like often Nintendo's games, makes the act of finding and collecting things like very pleasurable and enjoyable, and is like satisfying in and of itself, even if the thing that you find is like whatever. Although the things you find in Astro's Playroom are pretty cool. You're finding like all these high-res models of like various PlayStation accessories going back to the PlayStation 1. So it's like, yo, you want to flip around this high-res 4K memory card? It's like, yeah, I do. And they find accessories that, like a multi-tap, and like, I almost don't even want to spoil it because they go deep in terms of nostalgia. There's some really fun surprises for, if you're familiar with the history of PlayStation, there is a lot of that stuff hidden.
Yeah, I was watching the Giant Bomb, Brad and Jeff play through one of those levels, and there's lots of like little PlayStation history nods to games and hardware and stuff, where I'm like, is this the first system where they've been able to leverage this as a nostalgia thing? Because
100%,
the PlayStation generation.
Like I genuinely don't want to spoil like the discovery of it, except to just say that like, you think it can't go deeper, and then they just go a little bit deeper. You quote unquote beat the game, and then there's like another thing that happens, and then they're like, no, we can go deeper. And like like one of the references they save for the end is like it's such a deep cut that like it's really delightful if you've been following games for as long as some of us have. I'm trying to think what else I would say, like, because I on like the 4K point. So like, this is the first time that I have a 4K TV.
You now have the setup where your eyes can see the 4K.
Well, so yes and no, right? Okay. So what happened specifically, like you turn on a PS5, and I think Rob spoke to this with he has a 4K TV as well. When you just turn it on, like it doesn't, like, there's nothing about like I turned it on and like started playing like Bugsnax or even Miles Morales and went like, damn, 4K is here. If you told me I had the settings wrong and it was 1080p, like I would have believed you. What happened was I was trying to capture footage from Astro's Playroom, and so I like reconfigured my office, like got the capture. Like I wanted to just capture it on my computer, so I didn't have to like capture on the PS5's video stuff, put it on a USB drive. Like I just wanted to skip that step. So I had it passing through a capture box, and so I'm playing Astro's Playroom, and a couple minutes in, I'm like something up with my TV. Like it's new. I don't really. Maybe there's like a setting that's off. And if you go into the settings, you can see like what it's outputting. And I realized it was outputting at 1080p. I was like, oh shit! Like I can tell. Like I was able to tell the difference between 1080p and 4K. I still ultimately don't think it's like a huge deal. I think most people are going to choose performance over resolution, but it was one of those instances where I was like, oh, like I've tried to convince myself that I couldn't tell the difference, that it's one of those things like it's no big deal. And I stand by that it's not that big of a deal, but it is true that like I was able to meaningfully tell the difference, and it bugged me. And the thing that gets, Cado, were you going to say something?
No, I just chuckled. That it bugged you.
It isn't, because I've tried to live in ignorance, because now I have one TV in my house that's 4K, but everything else is not. And I don't think it's going to bug me, because the moment I would connect my PS5 to a 1080p set and be like, okay, like I don't sit here looking at it and go, I've entered the ugly zone.
That's really the thing too, is that there are more pixels on that 4K TV, so scaling it down, you're gonna notice irregularity more.
So this is this is where I found the annoying stuff came up. So the way that like backwards compatibility works on PS5 was like, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, maybe you know this more than because you've used the Xbox more, is like almost by default, a lot of games are getting like boosts on the Xbox, and that's just not happening on the PS5. There is a boost mode, and then some games are getting patches, which is patches and stuff are also like, it's not clear to me how all this is working, but it's like you put in Bloodborne, and Bloodborne doesn't just become 60 frames a second. Like Bloodborne just looks like Bloodborne. It looks as it is. It's the same thing on PS5, even though it was the first thing I put in because I was hoping some sort of magic would happen. But like, nope, that's just Bloodborne, which is still great. But I put in God of War, which has a performance mode and a resolution mode. And in performance mode, it uncaps the frame rate. And from what I understand, on PS4 Pro, it meant it could get to like 40 to 50 frames a second. And then on the PS5, it can hit like pretty consistently 60. And then there's a resolution mode that it's going to set it up to 4K. Well, that 4K mode, that frame rate is just, I'm not a frame person. I've played consoles all my life until like relatively recent in my gaming history, and so I've just played a lot of console games that just have shitty frame rates, and it just didn't bug me. It just is what it is. But you'd play the resolution mode, and it looks really sharp, but I can just tell that it's framing along. And I was like, all right, well maybe I'll just go to the performance mode, and I'd rather have the 60 frames anyway. Well, as Cado said, now that I'm playing it on a 4K set, well, that just looks like shit. And I'm exaggerating, but it's like the contrast between the two, because you can just switch between them. Like I'm just going to the options, switching to resolution, going to the options, switching to performance. And it's just like, it's pixelated. Like it looks jaggy. Like I'm not Digital Foundry. Like I don't have the vocabulary to like fully, I look at it and go like, I don't want to play this. And then I go into the resolution mode and I was like, well, I don't want to play this either.
Oh no.
And so I ended up just turning off God of War and being like, I don't want to engage with any of this. Whereas then I could connect the PS5 to my 1080p set, and I was like, oh, this looks normal, because like it's not creating that extra disparity that like Cado is speaking to that I've never encountered, because this is my first time like seeing what like 4K does to like different games, and whereas then you play Days Gone, a game I did not like very much, but that game got. Yeah, I think that game was like mean and cruel and bad in ways that really frustrated me.
I can't think of that game without thinking about the long letter you got about.
I read a lot of articles, and I still every couple of months get someone very upset about Days Gone, and they never just write like "fuck you." It's always like "fuck you," but also, and then like "fuck you" in like 1,200 words. And it's just strange why Days Gone has prompted that response. Part of it is probably because I was like, sometimes you throw the venom at a game, and like that was a game where I threw the venom at it, and so it's probably sparking an immediate response. But that game got a really big update for the PS5, and that game looks fucking gorgeous. It looks like a native PS5 game. Like it runs at 4K, it runs these 60 frames a second. Like I've spent several hours playing Days Gone just to be like, this looks awesome. And actually this is like enough to like, well, I don't remember how much I disliked this game. Maybe I could just see where the story goes from here. Cause I liked a couple of the characters all right.
Wow.
So then you see the disparity between like a team, whereas like God of War, like they're clearly in full production on like a God of War, Ragnarok. Like, like they didn't spend the time to like fully update God of War for PS5. But when you see that, and then you see Days Gone, where they took the time to really polish that up for PS5, like the disparity there is like really wide. Whereas like I found myself like poking around at Days Gone, despite not particularly liking the game, in God of War, a game I did like quite a bit and really enjoyed the combat, I was like, well, this hurts my eyes. I don't want to do this. So I mean, it's because it's in a weird in between spot, right? And different games are getting different levels of polish for the generational switch. It's just like a weird thing I noticed where the 4K stuff didn't bother me in Astrobot. I could live if that TV just turned to 1080p, but because of the way 4K displays work, God of War just like ended up looking like a real eyesore, or had a frame rate that like tangibly impacted my ability to like want to engage with the combat.
That seems like something they need to get ahead of, because like God of War feels like one of those games. I think we've all done the thing where, be it speakers, be it like PC upgrade, you get a new piece of kit and you're like, I'm going to take something I know really well and I liked and see how it is.
Crisis, or like I remember a big thing years ago was like BioShock, like that game, we all know how we think about BioShock, like the arc of that series, but like
that game could look even oilier.
It looks good, and especially that opening airplane scene. Like so many of my friends, when they'd get a new GPU, was like install BioShock and like watch it run at like 60 frames a second for the first time, like in those opening sequences where you get to Rapture. And like there is a bit of that where like, because these machines are being treated kind of like PCs or phones, your expectation is, because it happens in different ways, it's like, oh, this is basically, I've bought a graphics card upgrade. I'm going to play the old game and it's going to look better and it's going to be like shiny and new. And it'd be like God of War and it's like, no, like not really actually. And then you play Days Gone, it's like, no, actually, like this is it. Like what you had, what they're kind of selling you, like conceptually, happened here. You have bought a new graphics card and Days Gone looks like sick as shit now. But
this
then
is the way Days Gone was meant to be appreciated.
Finally, you can play off-brand Walking Dead Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
Miserable.
So that inconsistency is just, it struck me. And then you have like something where in the middle, like Ghost of Tsushima, where it got a patch. It goes to 60 frames a second. And again, I'm not Digital Foundry, so I'm speaking from ignorance here. But like Days Gone looked really sharp. Ghost of Tsushima ran really fast, but didn't look as sharp. And then you had God of War, where it just felt like, here you go.
Here's two modes. Neither of them work.
Yeah, exactly. And the performance will work for people who like really want that the frame rate. Like it does what it says. It's sort of like I wanted something in between. I was like, I would like the resolution, please, but also like at a decent frame rate. And so, again, I'm not someone that plays older games. I tend to just kind of move forward. And so I am not, I can't speak to that, fully, but in my experience of trying to engage with that stuff for the purposes of reviewing the hardware, I found that inconsistency to be really jarring, across, multiple first party games where you think they'd be getting kind of the most amount of attention.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask y'all here, like, who have the PS5. For me, like, where I came out of this pre-release window is, the thing I will say about the PS5 is it does feel like a new console. It does feel like a new platform. I think that's largely down to things like the controller, things like Astro's Playroom, and things like Miles, where like there are things I can look at with the PS5 and be like, that's new. And admittedly, it's benefiting from comparison with the PS4, which never really had the horses, and even the PS4 Pro was kind of like putting a Band-Aid on that problem. But like, I look at the PS5 and I'm like, I can see what that does. Is it enough to be worth the price? I don't know, but it does feel like a cool new thing to me, and I'm curious if y'all had that feeling or if it was underwhelming just as a piece of kit.
Gita, I'm curious, I'm curious how you felt about this. Like, did you just dump in Miles and it felt like a next gen? Like where did you kind of fall in this question?
I mean,
or did you just not give? Did you like just not give a shit at all?
Unless there is something that is specifically next gen-y to me, I do not notice it. Like this, I looked at these two boxes when they were announced, and I'm like, this is a battle of two pre-built PCs, essentially.
Sure,
pre-built PCs with native HDMI output for television. So like I felt the controller and was like, this is a new controller. I tried to absorb what would feel different. Yes, lack of loading screens. Yes, there is like a better draw distance in the Miles Morales game, I think. there's these tiny little differences between this and my PS5. It's still incredibly loud. I found like a really loud box. And just, I do not feel like we are at the point where the technological differences between these boxes is so incremental that it's really difficult for me to be able to pinpoint what the differences are. When it goes to like even just the visual output, I don't have a good enough setup just in terms of my living room to really understand what the visual differences are.
I think you're most people though, right? Like that's like that was one of the reasons like I tried to play the PS5 on a 1080p set because it's like, all right, so I've decided to, make this leap alongside with this console, but and I'm sure these will drive 4K adoption. Like, 4K TVs are just, you can't avoid them. If you don't want to buy a 4K TV, like that's just like tough shit. Like it's just going to be in all, even the tiniest of TVs over the course of like, the next year, if not already having swallowed the lineups. But like TVs are not something people replace like until they break or, just an especially good, like most people are going to buy these boxes with the TV they had before and 1080, and it's gonna be one of the but even if you have it, like I said, I noticed it because I saw it switch. But if you had told me it's only because I did essentially like a comparison. I was playing Astro's Playroom in 4K, and then 10 minutes later I was doing it in 1080p.
Right.
Had I started on with just the 1080, like I don't know that I would have sat there and gone like, well, this shit's fuzzy.
I feel like when I was thinking about what someone should buy, I can't come up with a reason to buy one of these new pre-built PCs if you already have a different pre-built PC in your house. But if you've never built one of these pre-built PCs before, I would get the one that comes with the discounted subscription to all the games you missed out on.
Well, especially if you have like a launch PS4, Xbox One, those things are so fucking long in the tooth. Like they just game, like, one of the last major games, Marvel's Avengers, like ran like dog shit on like both of those machines. And even Marvel's Avengers on my PS4 Pro, like that and Last of Us were so made the jet engine of that Pro so loud that I was putting on headphones instead of, listening out of like my nice sound bar. And so it's like, I can see being in a place where if you have these old, it's truly been 7 years. Like this is like a meaningful upgrade. And if you have to pick between the two.
What I noticed when I picked up when I got the PS5, the immediate reaction David and I had was, we can get rid of one of our PS4s because we moved in together and we both have a PS4. And like, if we get both of our accounts set up there, then someone can keep the newer, more recent PS4 and play games in the office while I play games in the living room because we'll have backwards compatibility for all our PS4 games. So like, it makes sense for like a situation like that. These are like very situational boxes, it's like where it's what I'm coming down to. It's like, they've created these new boxes because there are like technological differences they want you to be able to put into these new boxes, but we're not going to see like I don't think that we will see the same kind of rush and urgency to buy them unless you are in very specific situations. Like if you got into gaming during the lockdown and you want a better gaming system, there's a box that will fill that need for you. Or if you have, your super old PS4 and you want to play the new PS5 games and be able to access the rest of your PS4 library as well, then there's a box for you. But it's more like, it seems like, like more like TVs coming out now is what they have in common with, where there's new TVs that do newer things and have more features, but you're not
sure which one to buy. They all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
And then you're Rob and you're like looking at like 8,000 tabs to figure out which one you should buy. And it's, like in my review of the PS5, I wrote like, it's like the last time I bought a machine and it was like a whoa moment was like the Wii, like playing Wii Sports for the first time was like and there's a little bit with that, the Switch, and maybe Nintendo will just be the company that kind of like carries us forward. But like, we just don't live in a world, like so much has been settled on like, this is just how games are. This is the interface that we have chosen. There are certain standards that are sort of like setting in for the medium in terms of like just how we interface with them to some degree. And so that just means that, okay, that's what we've agreed upon is how this works. And so thus, these are just PCs in a box and not much is changing because, people don't want it to change. They just want the box to run better. Which
again, is a sea change in the way people are thinking about consoles, or it could be a sea change in the way that people think about consoles. The generational shifts moving over towards what a generational shift looks like in other consumer electronic devices, which is to say there can still be noticeable changes, especially across 2 or 3 generations. You know, I think when you compare whatever the PS6 is going to look like in 5 or 7 or 8 years to the PS4, and you're like, oh yeah, this is clearly, there's a huge difference there.
If all machines get that, what is that, a DSL? I'm fucking this up. Like
what's up? What are you talking about?
The
What is
AI
it?
stuff that's in the NVIDIA cards. Like,
Oh,
like
DLSS?
essentially they can fake 4K for you,
right.
like and like start getting
And
you
it's
a bunch of
frequently
this stuff.
better than actual native 4K.
Right. Like
yeah.
I like, will you be
Right.
shocked if like the PlayStation 5 Pro and the whatever, or like that's what's in those boxes is like, actually,
this is
turns
the
out
other one to
4K
bring
is
up.
super taxing, and so we're gonna do this shit for free with these new cards.
So when you get the Xbox box, very prominently on the front of it is 8K. And one of the subplots, not to like Aram, I'm sorry, like I'm not putting you on blast, but one of the fun subplots of this review cycle has been Aram Jabari over at PlayStation trying to figure out whether or not we all received HDMI 2.1 cables or not. And my suspicion is we did, because that is what the that
We
is
did. It's
apparently.
well, it was a question. I was like, HDMI. You need HDMI 2.1 cables to take advantage of certain like features of HDMI
this is
2.1.
these are the features. This is where I'm going.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
need
okay, go ahead.
HDMI 2.1 because that's the only way to get 4K at 120 frames per second or 8K at 60 frames per second. I don't
question.
know. Like, yeah.
Is there anything at launch that does either of those things?
I believe the only, I could be wrong, but I believe Ori and the Will of the Wisps is the only game that does the 120 frames a second. I think that's true.
What sort of correct? Does my TV, not my monitor, which I know what my monitor's refresh rate. My TV probably doesn't do that, does it?
No, but
certainly not.
So if I had,
do my eyes? My eyes do that.
They would.
Maybe.
Up to what?
Yeah.
120?
Mandatory upgrades? Should I get new eyes?
You remember when that fucking Hobbit movie came out and everyone was freaking out about that? People could tell. Yeah, people could tell.
Okay.
Yeah, but that went bad because it wasn't your eyes that were getting upgraded. It was the frame rate, and it was like, all this looks like shit. Everything's so good.
Yeah, it turns out
These
you see more
prosthetics are
frames, you
horrifying.
realize that prosthetics are fake.
Yeah. But no, I think this is the thing, is these consoles are like, and here is the next frontier. It's 4K 120 frames per second and 8K something or other. And I'm like, I don't like, these consoles have these stats on them that I'm pretty sure will be effectively dead letters for the life of the console.
Right.
4K
Unless
120
DLSS rolls in and changes everything.
Well, and also like, I think you need a real new TV to
Right.
get that 120 frames. Yeah, so it's in a weird place where these consoles imply they have a certain degree of headroom that like there's no way we're going to see on the current cross-generation games.
Right.
But I am kind of curious, like, how much of that headroom is ever actually going to be realized? When am I ever going to encounter an 8K source? Who's going to give me an 8K source?
Good question. No one.
Mind you, I want one.
What? I know you
Gran
do.
Turismo.
Christopher Nolan released Tenet in 8K.
Oh my god. Fuck off.
So I can watch it in Fortnite like I meant to.
Well, in 8K, if you're watching it in Fortnite, then there's enough
it's-
detail that you can actually.
Right. You can't see it, but your fucking Fortnite character can. And you gotta believe in your Fortnite character. Give your Fortnite character the best experience they can have. Wait, I thought of something important. We have to go back to Spider-Man. How does new Peter Parker look?
He looks
I got over it extremely quickly.
He looks exactly like the person that I was seeing right before I met David, who
Oh my god.
broke up with me over text on his birthday while I was getting ready to go to his house, telling me that he wasn't ready to be in a relationship with anyone, and then started dating his current wife 2 weeks later. So I was very happy when he exited from the story early.
Is his current wife Mary Jane Watson?
No, but she was a shitty writer. So
damn. Get her ass. All right. Well, okay.
I will say, new Peter Parker, both MK and I noticed, and I think this is probably Evan's influence somewhere in that project. New Peter Parker, you can say a lot about him. incredible ass. Dick Grayson-esque, really.
Yeah.
Congrats to
Dick
Peter Parker.
Grayson-esque for sure.
Yeah.
I do also
All
want to
caked
say,
up on a Wednesday afternoon.
I texted Evan this while I was watching Spider-Man in the puffy jacket with the random Adidas, the what are those shoes? And I was like watching him swing around. I was like, why didn't they just they had to give him Adidas. Why didn't they put him in the slides?
Right, why put him in the slides? Put him in the
Why
slides.
not put him in the slides? That's
Bruh.
if he has to wear Adidas,
Miles,
put him in the slides.
Downloadable outfit free.
Yes.
Slides plus like bathrobe plus like a bathrobe a little bit too big. Like,
Yeah,
please.
with the cat in his arm.
100% holding the cat going out. I mean, the problem is what we're actually talking about. This is an Uncle Aaron outfit is the problem. This is a grown man outfit. Miles is not a grown man. So maybe that's why they didn't give him the slides.
I did text Evan and he texted back in all caps, too black.
On the record, Evan, we got you.
Sorry, I'm a journalist, should have known.
You should have known. God, the slides are so good. A real, actually important last question here. I'm looking at the launch library. I know we can't talk about Demon's Souls because none of us have it yet, I believe. Unless Patrick's been lying to me and secretly playing and loving Demon's Souls without telling me.
I would not be able to keep that from you.
Why? Okay, where is our Godfall coverage? I need to know about the looter slasher.
So
the slasher looter.
The status of Godfall. Believe me, I've been going out of my way. I need Cado to cover this game.
Damn it.
He's got 6 articles to write about Godfall.
Fuck.
We're starting a wiki and a guides section of Cado. We're starting with Godfall.
Yes.
This is so. The status of Godfall is the status of a lot of other games at this moment, which is that those third-party games are just coming in extremely hot. Right, like the Godfall folks reached out to me and were like, "Hey, we're getting ready to, to let people play Godfall. Like, can we send you a box of something with a PC code?" And I was like, "What if not box and PS5 code?" And they're like, "Well, not sure." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So they made a big ass deal about like tweeting out like they'd manufactured a disc and then can't send a code because probably like a lot of folks going gold means nothing, and then you're polishing to the last possible second in order to put out a patch that's going to actually finalize the game, or NBA 2K, which had a really spectacular trailer showing off how that game is supposed to look on these new boxes, and I filled out a form to get a code at a later date. But don't worry, they said the PC stuff will be available first, so Cado, you'll be in luck. As someone not with one of these new boxes yet, you will still be able. You will not be able to come an excuse to not cover.
God damn it!
Hell yeah, Cado's our Godfall correspondent. We need you to report from the front.
The early loot returns are incredible here in Godfall. Strong showing from the Contreras demographic.
What is the Waukesha County of Godfall?
We're waiting on these Milwaukee returns, but it looks like all of the loot boxes are still locked up. We don't have the keys. There is the county registrar has the key, but she hasn't come in yet. We don't know where she is. We think she's just taking a nap. We're trying to get a hold of her, get her loot box keys. We'll be back hopefully with some more information about that after the break. We're gonna go to Steve Kornacki to look at the map and.
Just wired on amphetamine and Rip Fuel.
Pulling up a Ubisoft map of collectibles. Steve Kornacki trying to get all the banners in an Assassin's Creed game. Trying to figure out the most elegant loot run or whatever, get all my crafting mats. I guess I very
what the Democrats did wrong with this election is they stuck critical path and they had no ground game to go get the side quests.
You got
so they were underleveled for the boss.
What's the raid?
Now, I think that they're going to sneak out the win against the boss. However, there's a lot left on the table during the raid itself. There's these optional encounters, and they couldn't bring together what they needed for those optional encounters, so they're not going to get the maximum result from this raid success.
Yeah, they missed a lot of optional chests, which means that the loot that you could have made you just more powerful along the line, make future raids easier for you.
It's fine to complete the public event, but what you really want is to complete the heroic version of the public event. That's how you get the rewards.
Trigger the heroic version.
You've got to trigger the heroic version.
Look, there's going to be in the coming weeks, there are going to be postmortems on Discord as the raid group tries to figure out what went wrong, who is invited on the next one, who will be given the wrong information about when the raid is happening, who will be politely invited to raid with someone else.
Some of the leaders in this raid team talk about using stasis and the power of the darkness in order to further their success in some of the areas that they missed out. Well, I mean, the other members of the team might think that further entrenching themselves in the power of light will actually have a greater benefit in the future.
Look, Robbie Mook is here explaining how this weapon is still in the meta. It feels good with it. He doesn't understand why you're complaining about him bringing it.
He's done the theory crafting, Rob. He's looked at all the stats. He knows. Look at his calculations. He's a data-driven raid leader, and he's gonna get us there.
Talk about game theory.
Very, 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 very briefly, I've been playing Yakuza Like a Dragon. I don't know if it's Yakuza 7. Is it Yakuza 7?
I think it's just Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Like a Dragon. I'm going to talk more about it on Monday because we've already gone so long today. But reviews are up for that, so I wanted to at least quickly speak up. I don't know. I think this game has really bad pacing, and I say that as someone who likes Yakuza game pacing, which is slow pacing. I think like the RPG stuff is neat. For people who don't know, it's the first time that the series has totally moved away from Kiryu to a new protagonist, who is another Yakuza dude named Kagura Ichiban. His name really is Ichiban, his given name. Who is like, born in a soapland, which is like a kind of sex worker bathhouse, raised by the community, then raised by the Yakuza, does the thing that happens in all these games, which is takes the fall for a crime he didn't commit to protect his mentor and his family, his Yakuza family, comes out of jail. And 20 years later, the world has changed. He's been left behind. His old loyalties seem to have fallen through. And then he winds up in a new town. And the bulk of the first open area of this game, like when you're in the game for real after the kind of opening tutorial stuff, is you as you living in a homeless camp. And the pitch on this game is very much, this game feels in some ways like a response to the positive response that some of the stuff in Yakuza 0 around like sex work and the dominatrix quest, and some of the more like social commentary stuff was, because this is that like dialed all the way up. The big meta plot right now is that in the town that this game takes place in, Yokohama, there is a group called Bleach Japan, which is trying to get rid of all of the gray zones in Japan, which is like, they're trying to shut down Amsterdam, right? They're trying to shut down they're trying to make sure there's no paper bags for your 40. They're trying to get rid of all of the loopholes that let people, have pay sex workers for sex, or have other sorts of just kind of I'm looking for a word, but anything that would fall under the vice category of a police department, basically, drugs, sex, certain bars and stuff. And that group is this political action committee that it has a great deal of influence because their former leader is now a major politician. And so they're marching around Yokohama, with a megaphone, shouting at sex workers and shouting at brothels. And your character and your party, which ends up being the main party for the beginning of the game, at least, is or kind of the ones that they're showing in the trailers, I'll just say, is your dude who's an ex-Yakuza, a homeless dude you meet who is a nurse who got fired for stealing drugs and selling them, a former cop who got demoted and then fired for chasing corruption inside of the police, and then a hostess from a hostess club whose sister is a prostitute, as a sex worker for one of the kind of businesses you end up working with. And all that stuff is to say, it really wants to say something about homelessness and about the reasons the margins exist and the ways in which that's produced by society. And people, there's lots of long lectures about how homeless people don't choose to be homeless, and it's not as simple as they can go get a job. And there's a point at which you go to a job center to try to get a job, and they're like, well, where do you live? We need an address to even get you hooked up in a temp agency and like, well, I don't have an address right now. And all right, well, fuck off, basically. There's all sorts of stuff around like, well, why does someone turn to sex work? And how are the ways in which the sex workers are pushed there by society and then taken advantage of by shitty managers in this soap land? But also, is he kind of giving them a home and da-da-da-da? And none of it really lands. All of it is like through this filter where you can tell that their end goal is a game in which in which they think these parts of society are natural and are coming under attack in a way that is undeserved, or if not natural, is like, it is good that there is sex work in the world, right? And I think on paper that stuff is good, but every lecture that happens is just like a little off. So like, for instance, the homelessness one, there's a point at which one of the characters is like, you don't get it. People aren't homeless just because they don't want to go get a job. It's because they don't have the willpower to go get a job. And they don't have the willpower because the society is like cut them off and they're sad about their families and they feel like they fucked up. And it's like, okay, but wait, you said they're not going to get a job because they don't want to, not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the willpower to. That's not that distinct. You didn't really shift to talk about societal issues. You just kind of said they don't want to in different words. And that's the sort of way in which a lot of this ends up being tackled. And they're just weird things are like, you meet a shitty pimp, basically, a guy who runs one of these soap lands, which are like bathhouse brothels. And he's just a piece of shit. And the main character's constantly like return to this, or the main dude specifically is like, no, I think he actually cares. I think in his heart, he really cares about these women. Like over and over again, he's just a profiteering piece of shit who does not come across as someone who secretly has a heart. But the game keeps trying to sell you him as a secret good guy. And that's on top of just like, I don't know that the combat stuff is as good as it should be. I miss the dynamism of previous Yakuza games. There's no heat actions. You're not slamming dudes' faces into soda machines or into trunks. I'm going to keep playing it a little bit because it's interesting to see the Dragon Quest stuff. There's a point where you pull a bat from the street and it turns into like a super energy bat, and then you become a hero class character and everything becomes like a little more JRPG and the music starts sliding more in that direction. And that stuff is like neat. But I don't know that I'm glad it's going there. It's very interesting to see a game that is like, here is a puritanical political committee that is trying to like hurt the people in the margins. But I don't necessarily know that it has like the depth to tackle those things in a way that's anything but kind of tossed on. Also, just like not as cool. Like that's really what it comes down to. No one is as cool as Majima in Yakuza 0. No one has like any of those like big splashy, badass moments. You do the like Yakuza raid early on where you go to one of your, I guess you do two of them, you go to like the local Yakuza clan house, and none of that is like that exciting, turn it up to 11 as doors get kicked down and you have big fights. And like, that's what I'm coming to Yakuza for. I want that stuff to feel really, really exciting and cinematic. So we'll see. Maybe having talked about this, I just won't touch it again. I'll have the podcasting curse of I've spoken for 8 minutes. And so now I never have to touch this thing again. But I don't know. It seems I'm curious about the other characters. I'm curious about the meta plot. The basic premise of just like you're in a town where there's the Yakuza, the Chinese mafia, and a Korean gang all kind of in a Cold War is like a neat premise and setting. So I might stick with it a little bit this weekend, but with other stuff coming out soon, it's hard to think I'm going to put the 50 or 60 hours into this.
I was going to say, especially because it's not as though it's a quick jaunt. Those games are always like so if like
how long to beat makes it look like this is even longer than the average Yakuza game. Oh my God. So it's like, dude, I don't know.
Which is what put me off. Like when I played, Yakuza 0, like 2 years ago, I was like, man, this rules.
It does rule. You should finish 0.
And I'm not arguing that. It was just, I think I looked at the how long to beat, and it was like 60 hours or whatever. And I was playing like Gravity Rush 2 at the time. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to have to pick one or the other. And
God, what game rules? Gravity Rush 2. That game's great.
It goes on too long. The last third is not great, but man, that first two thirds
is fantastic.
Look good on a PS5.
Oh, boot that shit up. 3. Tell me how that looks. 8K, 120 frames a second, Gravity Rush 2. Let's go.
Also, I just watched the launch trailer for Godfall, and that game looks pretty good, actually. I kind of want
to
play it. It looks like it just took like the God of War combat, and it's an actual 4K as opposed to the God of War on PS5 that I played.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
It looks all right.
God.
Cado, you and I will play Godfall.
Yeah, great.
I'm going to play Godfall. I'm down. Let's go. Let's start a clan.
All I want to say is right now is that 5 minutes ago, Wesley Snipes just tweeted.
I saw that
Wait,
retweet. I was like,
what happened?
It's so good.
Just
tell me
this
about Wesley
tweet.
Snipes.
Just
Look
look
in
in the
the-
chat, my friend.
Oh,
5
my
minutes
God.
ago, Wesley Snipes.
I love him. I love him. I love
I
him.
love him.
I love
Blade
him.
knows what's up.
Just take the L.
Nigga, just take
the
this L, please. I'm
also,
trying to
we
get
need
out
it.
of this
We
news
need it.
cycle.
I love little punk Cowboys fan, Notre Dame Steve, saying, "You know your taxes will go up. Can you afford another episode?" Snipes, he was mind your tax bracket, chump.
Oh, damn. Oh.
He's in the mentions.
He's
That's
in the
great.
mentions. I love it. I love the energy.
Social media
can
is
get these
toxic.
hands
It has destroyed the
tax-free.
world. But Wesley Snipes is in the mentions. And
He's
so,
in the mentions.
you know,
You know?
He's in the mentions. I love it. He's in the
his
mentions
DMs
a lot.
appear to be
Not want-
his DMs appear to be open.
You do not want the
DM him
Jaywalker
right
to
now.
come
We
for
got to
you.
someone DM him. Someone DM him.
What am I gonna say?
Keep it up.
I'm gonna say why won't he take the L?
Why won't he take the L?
Go
DMs.
DM wet
Oh.
ass president.
DM'd.
Has that
God.
said anything? Does that work?
Come back on Monday to see if Wesley Snipes
Please.
responds to why won't he take the L?
Why won't he take the
Please.
L? We know why.
Tell me, Wesley.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us. We'll be back on Monday.
My
for
brains
more.
are
Uh-huh.
You think we'll have a president? You think we'll know the results
I'm
of the
verified
selection?
on Twitter. That means he got a push notification
got a
about
push.
this. Social media
Wow,
is an
Patrick.
ill.
Wow.
Is an ill.
Patrick
no, but I'm
Klepek.
just saying, we live in a world where
Where Bluechecks
We live in a
have
society.
Patrick was verified. Now he's a blue check. There's
Wow.
it's the
to know that his phone buzzed. Like you whatever he will ignore that promptly. But his phone buzzed. That's just so funny.
it's the now retired and rightfully so Chris Rock niggas versus black people bit, except it's blue checks versus verified accounts.
Blue checks be shopping.
Blue checks. Let me tell you about some blue checks. All right. That's going to do it for us. As always, you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/waypoint. You follow me, twitter.com/Austin_Walker. Cado, how about you?
At _Cado_appears. I was gonna make some
Patrick.
Destiny joke because shit's popping off, but it's
Oh, is Destiny shit popping off? Hell yeah.
it's ARG day. There's an ARG happening.
I see.
Sorry, what? No, you know what? No.
It's ARG Day.
It's ARG
It's ARG
day.
Day.
Arr.
ARG.
Oh,
It's a pirate,
ARG.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, Rob wasn't doing a bit.
Oh, we love Rob.
Gita, where are you? Where can people find you,
You
Gita?
can find me at XOXO Gossip Gita.
Patrick, did I already ask you? I don't feel
you
like I
can
did.
find me at Patrick Klubak waiting to see if I see a little ...
Waiting
Or just
patiently.
I need the read receipt. That's all I need. Can that mark go from gray to
Please.
blue? And I know that Wesley Snipes or his social media person probably not. Wesley seems like he's doing his own social
He
media.
is.
He
Yeah,
really
is out
does
here.
seem like
100%.
that.
Yeah.
Did you see that Will Smith started his own lo-fi hip-hop YouTube channel? It had like 11,000 people following. I have one that I load up when I write. It's just my default one. But I'm
Yeah.
thinking about switching to Will's.
I see. Okay, I see a playlist that he has, or like a video. I don't see this is this a channel? Does he just?
Oh, is it not? Maybe
I think
it
it's
was
just an
I thought it
hour
said
and-
like 11.
I subscribe
Maybe it started as a
to
stream.
a really, really good one, but then made the mistake of checking out the link to their discogs.com listings. And they're like this Japanese person that has all these rare records. And I was like, I can't become the person who starts ordering records from Japan. And here's the channel. It's so good. It's all city pop,
Please send it.
funk, soul,
Ooh,
reggae.
send that through. Send that
It's
through.
so
I
good.
need this. I need
Okay.
this in my life.
Oh,
Especially
I
because
can-
they
I
took
can-
the Pepsi Lo-Fi channel off the air. So
I know. Where is it, Rob?
God damn
Bring
it.
back
Gotta
Pepsi
get that
Lo-Fi.
blue.
Absolutely
God.
do not look at this person discogs.com listings because they have so many records for sale and they all look so amazing. But you have to pay shipping from Japan.
Yeah, which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
God. All right. That's
I
gonna.
confused the 11 million views with 11,000 people watching. So I guess it's just an hour.
It's just a.
It's fine.
That's fine. That's not
Yeah,
as fun.
Patrick.
That's not as fun.
No,
That's
it's
not as
not.
fun.
I liked your version better.
Yeah. For people who missed it, the most important musical thing of the year was definitely the bad Pepsi lo-fi stream that happened.
Beats to Sip 2.
Beats to Sip 2. Beats to Sip 2. Is that what it was actually called?
Yes.
Yeah, it literally was. Drink a red can, that's a no-no. Drink a blue can, that's a promo.
Wow.
That's also the Democrat
I was about to
strategy.
say.
Drink a red can, that's a no-no. Rob, where can people find you?
At Rob Zachney.
Red canned is the new red pilled.
Oh my God, fuck off.
Jesus God.
Fuck off. Bye. That's it. I hate this.
Isn't he grabbing the eject
Go to-
handle but like slamming my head against the canopy like Goose and Top Gun?
As always, you can follow everything we do, twitter.com/waypoint, waypoint.vice.com. There's a billion things up from the launch, and there will be by the time this goes up. Gita has a Miles review. What else? Patrick has a Bug Snacks. And,
Bugsnax and PS5.
Yeah, there'll be a review of Bug Snacks, Astro's Playroom, and the sort of like PS5 as a whole.
as a whole, Rob already has the Xbox review up now. Is there anything else to plug? Are we good? All right. Well, can I do like a plug?
Wow.
I'm gonna do a real plug. I don't think it's been announced yet, but it's supposed to happen in 2 days. So I'm guessing that announcement should be any second now. I'm gonna become a professional dungeon master. I know I'm kind of already that.
Wait,
but
I was gonna say.
Well,
the news?
yeah, but
Austin, this is not an announcement.
this is an announcement. Friends at the table. No. Some folks at BioWare reached out to me like a month ago, I guess, to be like, yo, what if you ran a Blades in the Dark hack that we built internally because we love Blades in the Dark called Omni Blades in the Dark, which is a cute name for us for N7 Day. And so I did that with two incredible developers from BioWare as players, along with both Jen Hale and Mark Meir, the voices of Commander Shepard, and Ali Akampora, the producer of Friends at the Table.
Oh, wow.
So that was a fun, weird thing to do, to run a tabletop Mass Effect game for the Shepards plus two BioWare devs plus a friend of mine. It was a blast. We had a good time. That'll be up, I think, on the 7th. I want to say at like 3 p.m. On Twitch somewhere. I'll post about it online, so you can just go there to check it out. Unfortunately, this means that I have been, spoiled by big BioWare money. You can't ever trust me again as a critic, but I felt like it was worth it. I felt like that's probably
So you
it's my
you
sellout
said a piece
moment.
about Andromeda earlier in the stream.
I mean,
so
It's the last
Wow,
version
you're
you
right.
can deliver.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I did mention that Andromeda
you
game.
seeded it.
I think is
seeded, throw people off the scent.
I think it's pretty bad. But
tragedy
yeah,
Fine, they're not gonna
They
make
can
another
bribe
Mass
you,
Effect
but they
ever
didn't
again
bribe you
anyways.
enough. Like, I feel like my number to stop being a little bitch is like always a lot higher than what I'm getting offered.
yeah, I think there's a degree to which it's like this is a one-time thing, and so that number's like good, but it ain't. I still got bills. In fact, they did just
That
announce
didn't
it. So
become an Anthem promoter money.
right, that is not that. That is. I looked at that Anthem blog and was like, I don't know if this is going to do it for me. Like people linked me to that Anthem. Their Anthem is getting updated.
Oh shit, is there an update?
There was an update to like the way they're doing gear and builds. Basically, the menus look nice, but I was like, I don't think this is the thing that's going to bring me back to Anthem. I need more game. I need more like to do that's interesting in that game.
Yeah.
So
You know who I've heard loves gear though?
Who's that?
Cado.
Oh, fucking. You know what?
our
I would
Anthem
rather
was
play
fun. You gotta go
Anthem
back.
than fucking Godfall, okay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That game at least
Bada
felt
bing,
good.
bada boom. Just churn these out at the end of the year.
boom,
Jesus
boom, boom.
fucking
That's it.
Christ.
The loot report.
Yeah.
I can't do that and also play Destiny.
The Loot Report, that's Alcada's new Substack. He'll be leaving us to just
Yeah,
join into a
fuck.
Substack
Jesus
about
Christ.
shoot looters.
Finally, no one
God.
to censor
Never
Cado.
in my fucking life.
Look, intelligence is distributed just like drop rates. It's not random. Just look it up.
Wow.
Oh no! God.
This is miserable. We're ending this podcast. As always, thank you, everybody. Good luck. We'll see you all Monday. We hope the weekend goes well for everyone. By the time you hear this, who even knows what the world is like? We'll be back on Monday. Until then, and onward forever. Fuck capitalism. Go home.
the Souls bias comes out in our transition.
Yep.
Do you see that photo mode?
No.
The character creator. Here, let me. It looks pretty great.
Oh, is this what Dia was already dunking on?
Was she? Of course. She
Aw.
was so excited to hate
Ella.
this game.
Hi, Ella.
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 Hi.
Ella, speak.
Hi.
I need the takes.
Oh, whoops! I did it to the wrong page.
Let's
Right
see
to it
here.
though.
That's all right. It's is it page 1?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Patrick,
okay.
this is hentai.
No, damn,
God damn it.
Gene. It's funny. As we did that podcast, I got an email from like a Washington Post PR person that's like,
Jeez.
Gene Parks has thoughts on the Xbox Series S. That's
Wow, this is wild looking. This is wild looking.
yeah, it looks nice. I mean, I think
Yeah.
people are gonna have
Yeah.
capital T thoughts, but
It's the first time you can make an attractive person in Darker in a Souls game.
but I think that swings in both directions, where it's like
Uh-huh.
you'll be able to make the hottest person possible in a Souls game, and also the most beautiful, tremendous monsters. As
Oh
well.
yeah, I hope so.
I just looked at that photo, the depth of field shot from the photo mode, and I was like, man, like that's where the HDR is gonna fucking sing. Is that blaring sun?
Yeah.
Teeth.
Man, I could go for an egg and cheese now. Fuck.
Teeth.
You should just make Robert Ashley's meal.
Teeth.
I don't like that, Cado.
Teeth.
Ooh.
No,
Oh,
I
teeth.
reject this.
Teeth.
God,
Teeth.
look at 3.
Teeth,
Oh my
teeth,
god,
teeth.
3.
3 is the right answer for this world.
3, get braces, please.
No, you do not want the braces of the Dark Souls world.
That's true.
3's wood. That's wood.
That's braces. Warframe looks good on PS5.
Oh, should I?
Yeah, maybe I'll get into
for the
that game.
third
I've heard
time.
there's
For
some
the third
spoilers,
time,
so
should I
yeah.
download it and say I'm going to play it, and
Yeah.
not touch it?
This is the one.
Just eat my bandwidth cap over a useless
Patrick,
game.
you and me should get into Warframe. Let's be
Hell
Warframe
yeah,
guys.
let's go. War Pod.
Warpod.
Warpod.
Where we just talk about not playing Warframe, but think about playing Warframe.
I do. I hover my mouse over it occasionally,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm just like,
Then I'm
No.
reminded what everyone said, which is that it takes about 40 to 50 hours to get to the good stuff. And
yeah, I don't have that fucking time.
It's one of those games where the Warframe evangelists make it less likely that I'll actually play it because everything they say, like my eyebrows just continue to recede like further toward my hairline. Where I'm like,
yeah, pretty much.
oh, that's very interesting. Wow, your whole life, huh? Forever.
Forever, ever. This is it? Okay. Godspeed, Warframe enthusiasts.
How do this teeth screen cap? It's
Teeth.
frightening.
Don't
Teeth.
like it at all.
Don't like it.
Teeth.
When will video game teeth technology reflect the teeth of reality? That's my big question. That's next
Well,
gen to me.
I
Some
mean,
of this reflects
you can get
a
shark
reality.
teeth. Look at the 4 is shark teeth. That's peak.
Well,
That's peak teeth right there.
but video game teeth always look so scaly. Like they look like they aren't actually in the mouth, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Assassin's Creed Unity memorably reminded us, those teeth are just floating in there.
Yeah, they're just hanging out.
Sometimes your face could just melt off, and your teeth and tongue, and that's it.
Don't like it. I don't like it. I have coffee now.
Okay.
Was Ella a good podcaster? Did she do a good job for me?
I think she was a little shy. She could have spoken
Oh.
up a little more.
Yeah. fair.
She
Usually
didn't have
she's so angry.
yeah.
She didn't see the other cat out the window.
These people are too attractive to exist in Dark Souls.
This is what we're saying.
Yes, I agree. I feel like you should whatever you make, then there's some sort of like lever the game pulls, and it's like no, sorry, just like
It's just like,
the
hold
first
on.
5 minutes of the game is some evil wizard coming in and be like, sorry, this is they don't exist here. Have you seen this place? We don't have hairdressers.